Welcome back, everybody, to the Deconversionists with your hosts, Alan Bondar, aka the Unraveler, and Elliot. Good evening, good sir. How are you tonight?
Good evening. I am good enough to be here, as always. And
you
are as well, as evidenced by your presence.
Yes, and it is not Sunday Fun Day, but I'm here nonetheless. It is Tuesday Fun Day. But that doesn't quite rhyme as well. No. Tuesday Chum Day? I don't know. It doesn't. I don't know. I'm working on it, man. It's not working.
If I can think of something, I'll let you know.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That would be great if you could bail me out while we are waiting for people.
Think too hard.
No. I guess you wouldn't do that. But anyway, just welcome to everybody who is here for our live show, and we appreciate you being a part of the Deconversionists. And for those who will be watching after, we welcome you as well. Thanks for checking us out and being a part of our life together. It is a lot of fun doing these shows. I always enjoy hanging out with Elliot and the rest of the crew who is here behind the scenes, and we appreciate you all being a part of this. So anyway, tonight we have an interesting topic. Family life is healthier without God.
Okay. I like to get ambushed by these topics. I check beforehand, maybe like for a second, 5 minutes before, but it's always better to do it cold turkey for me, so you get an organic reaction. I have no pre-planned opinions, so
yes, it would seem that that's the case each week. Yes, I come up with the topics and you come out with a surprise, which is cool though, because it makes it fun, because then we sometimes even disagree, which makes it for great.
Well, you haven't complained yet, so I'm just going to keep doing it.
No, I actually like it. I think it's fun. I like being challenged. I like when we even disagree. I like when we agree too. I think it's fun all around.
Well, how about we do a new thing where we will disagree until we get a caller, and then we'll agree with each other and we'll disagree with the caller.
Okay, so we got to find some reason to disagree.
We're always fighting. Even when it's just
my name is Elliot. Prove me wrong.
Fuck you.
Oh Jesus.
All right. Anyway, topic. What's the topic tonight, Ellen?
Family life is healthier without God.
Oh,
I found that to be the case.
Or no,
you disagree. Okay.
Well, what's your position?
I came up with the topic, so yeah, that is my position.
So I got to make sure. So you're saying family life is healthier without God? Okay, I disagree. Yeah.
Okay, just for fun.
But you made the positive claim, so the burden of proof is on you.
Gotcha. Well, I see you're holding your mic tonight in your hand. That's different.
I don't know. Figured I would do something with my hand. So it's
better that than the alternative.
It's the autonomic nervous system. So I get rid of anxieties. I got to do something.
That is good. That is a wise choice, Elliot. I'm glad you chose that to relieve anxiety with your hand. That is a good choice, man. Thank you for doing something kind for all of us.
No problem. Yeah. Just sitting here is kind of, you save up that energy, the nervous energy, and then what are you going to do?
Yes, that is true.
Anyway.
Where people are starting to pour in, and I am sure they're not interested in hearing about what you do with your hand. I am also not interested.
Now I get your double meaning. Fuck you.
Also not interested in that. So while you hold your mic in your hand, we're going to talk about.
Now I got to keep both hands where you can see them at all times because of that comment.
Yes, you do. That is very important. But I like the glowing mic. That's kind of cool.
Oh, you don't have one of those?
I don't. See, my mic's here. It doesn't glow.
Well, you got to pick it up.
Well, it's here, but it doesn't.
Feeds up your body's energy and it glows.
Oh, yeah. Mine's not that cool.
You didn't know electrons work like that?
No. Mine's not that cool. Anyway, I have a feeling our guests are extremely ecstatic about what we are talking about currently, because it's actually on point. So speaking of microphones and they're glowing based upon electrons and whatnot, we're talking about family life is healthier without God. It's a perfect transition. Good segue. So we're back into our topic. Thanks to you, Elliot. That was really good. And so what do we think about this? Family life being healthy. Okay, so here's some of my thoughts. And they're not like vast. It's not like I got an hour's worth of content here, but we would love for callers, people to jump in. So we're just going to be talking about this, and if you are somebody there that's like you agree and you just want to come in and have a conversation with us, we love that too. Hop in. But if you're a theist, you'll take priority. So just click the link either in the info or in the comments and hop in and just put that you're a theist in your title of your name, right next to your name or whatever, and we'll bring you in because we'd love to have a conversation with you if you disagree with us. But why do I think family life is healthier without God? Well, I've been both a Christian and a non-Christian. I both believed in God and not believed in God, and I have had two different families altogether. My life with my first wife is a Christian, and also my church community and whatnot. But then my life after being a Christian and being an atheist now with my wife and her two kids and whatever other community I have outside of church. So I've been able to experience both, absolutely, and I can honestly say family life is healthier without God. One of the ways in which it's healthier without God is I have observed that when you don't try, when you don't feel the need to, and I'm going to use the word brainwash because it's a word that I use quite frequently, and it's in my book and everything. But when you don't brainwash your children into having to believe something that actually doesn't have any, you don't actually have any good reason to believe to begin with, the existence of God and Jesus and going to heaven and all this magical stuff that we have no grounds to believe. You instill this in your children, and a lot of it comes, and their belief comes from threats. Like, if you don't believe in Jesus, then you're going to go to a place called hell, or you're going to miss the rapture, or even in the lighter versions where, well, you're just going to die and you won't get to live forever. These sound very much like mafia type advocations, like do what I tell you or else. That's not a really positive way to get somebody to think and to learn about reality, especially when it comes to threat. If you're teaching your children that the best way to make a decision is when you're afraid of the alternative, are you really teaching them to think about what's true, or are you just teaching them to avoid pain and consequences and fear? And so I think that's one of the big things for me is I grew up with that mindset that you just have to believe in God, and even before all the threats come, you're just inundated with it anyway. So you don't ever get an opportunity to consider the evidence of whether or not a God exists. You're just told he does, and you're just raised like that, and you're never. And so like for me, as I was growing up, whenever I would have questions, I would bring them to the table, and I might ask my mom some things or my dad some things, and I would bring challenges, things that just didn't make sense to me right up. And I was always told, "You're just trying to find a fifth leg to the cat." That was a big phrase that my mom loved to say. And so it was like a poo-poo to your question. Stop questioning everything. Just believe. Like just believe it. Why do you have to question everything? Everything doesn't always have these answers. You're just trying to look for the fifth leg. You're trying. And so my inquisitiveness was always squelched in exchange for just trusting, just believing that God exists. Just believe what Jesus said. You don't have to question it. Just trust it. So that's frustrating to me. And I think when you raise kids like that, if you're not the kind of kid like me that just wouldn't let that squelching permeate my life, eventually they're going to escape, and that's great. But for the most part, most kids, they just trust their parents and they just believe it and they just go with it. But even for me, because of that, I lasted as a Christian for 42 years of my life, which is really sad. That's a long time. We see you behind the stage. Ping Fong will bring you in just a second. So that's a long time to have to fend off that mentality of just believe. And when your questions don't have answers, you just believe. So that's what I did. So that's one thing that I find to make life healthier, raising kids that aren't Christians. We're not in a Christian family anymore. We're atheists. We just teach our children to think. We tell them, hey, if you research it yourself and you work hard to know what you want to believe because you want to find it based on evidence. If you end up being a Christian, great. That's your choice. If you don't, that's also your choice. We want you to just believe based upon evidence. We want you to research and we want to teach them how to think, not what to think. So that's a big deal for me. Like that to me is a gigantic thing. And there's others, but I'll stop there and give you a chance to respond to that before we bring Ping Fong in and just see what your thoughts are on this topic.
Yeah, we can just postpone my thoughts. Go straight to callers. I'll give you my thoughts like in between callers if that'll work. Because I mean I've got a bunch of like random points to make.
Yeah, sure. I got other things too, but that's all right.
I don't want to hold anybody up if we got somebody.
All right, Ping Fong. Let's bring you on stage. Can you put your camera back on so that we can have a visible conversation with you, buddy? You are on camera now, except not on camera. Ping Pong Baby Shark fan, are you there?
Hi, Ping Pong Baby Shark fan. Yes.
All right. First of all,
trouble hearing you. Clean up your audio or put your camera on.
We got we got some. We got major audio.
Ping Pong Baby Shark fan.
Okay, we got bad. All right, time out. We got your visual. Now we got major audio issues. I'm going to mute you for a second because your audio is really loud. Okay, I am muting your camera. Do not unmute it yet. Okay, stop. Do not unmute your camera, Ping Pong. Okay, Jesus Christ. Stop unmuting your camera.
Hey, Alan.
What is going on here?
I think let's let him go. Let him go.
We got to remove you, buddy. Sorry.
Okay, so for anybody watching, we apologize. It sounded like he was inside of a wind tunnel and was not listening. So
yeah,
hey, that's what we get when we don't screen calls. We just take whoever calls in. So we have another caller, a Gloria Sean. If you have a webcam, now would be the time to turn it on because we do like to talk to people face to face. So if you're able to do that, go ahead and turn it on. Let us know that you're ready to go, and we will bring you in. If not, we'll just hold off and wait for you to do that.
Yep. When we see you visibly in the camera, we will bring you in. But until then, we're just going to wait for you. And Ping Pong, also, we're not going to bring you in right now. We need to know that your audio is fixed because it is really loud and obnoxious. So, all right.
Anyway,
and two guests gone just like that. So back to you, Elliot.
Back to me. All right.
If anybody would like to call in while we're doing that, here is the links are in the comments and the info. So feel free to hop in, but please have a camera and make sure your audio is not blaring and obnoxious and you're not in a wind tunnel. That's all we ask. Two very simple things.
Yeah,
Elliot, back to you, bud.
We do require the most minimal of professionalism to enter. So sorry about that. And just to let anybody know who's just starting to watch the show, like I require a webcam on your end so I can see you and see who you are because you can see me, and I like to have an even conversation. Other shows will allow callers to call in with audio only. I don't do that here because we would like to cut down on trolls. And if we don't have anybody screening these calls, I found that if someone's forced to show their face, they're going to be less likely to play games with us. And that's not what we're here for. We're not here to argue and fight and to do blood sport debate. We're here to have a personal conversation. So if you're not willing to do that, then this might not be the show for you. We have a lot of other shows in Skeptic Haven that you can go ahead and do that with, but this one is a little bit different. So anyway, does God or faith make families healthier or not? So I don't have a family right now, and I probably will not have one. My wife and I are not having kids, so I can't speak to how our family might be without God, but I can speak to how I grew up with faith as the center point of the family.
Well, you might even speak to just, I mean, when I say family, I don't even necessarily mean with kids. I mean, a family is just.
You're right. And that's why I'm going to talk about how I grew up.
Yeah, sure. Go for it.
Yeah.
And Ellis Sotoof, we see you, but we need you to put yourself in the camera. Once you do, we will bring you back in, or bring you in rather. So we'll just wait for you to do that. Go ahead, Elliot.
Yeah, as soon as you're visible, we'll let you on the show. So yeah, I grew up with God being the center of everything. So I was the oldest of 4 kids, and my parents were like, I was born in '83. My parents, they got involved with kind of a Christian Baptist cult in the late '70s. So they were pretty heavily indoctrinated before they had me. And then, like when they started to have children, like they, God was the most important thing. So that's all that mattered. And that's like what we were raised around. We went to church, like Sunday school +2 services on Sunday, prayer meeting, youth group, the whole 9 yards. And I have to say, like, our family without God would have still been a bit unhealthy. My mom came from a very harsh German background, and my dad was kind of a lazy father who didn't really want to be there. Didn't put in a solid effort, and my mom became like a very harsh, cruel taskmaster pretty early on, and stayed that way till I left home. So even if we didn't have God and it was an atheist family, it would have been a negative environment. But the introduction of God to it gave an excuse to be harsher and more cruel and more just bad in every direction. Like I got a tremendous amount of corporal punishment. I've spoken about this before on some other shows, but like I got waterboarded as a 4-year-old. My parents were trying out a new spanking tactic. Instead of beating me, they decided to drag me into the shower and like basically waterboard me after a fashion to try to, like, I don't know, disciplinary action. So that was very traumatic. But like throughout my entire life, entire childhood, like my mom would just use every possible implement in the house as a spanking stick. Her only method of parenting was corporal punishment, and that is a direct result of scripture. Like one of the first verses that I memorized as a child was, "Foolishness is bound in the heart of a child, but the rod of correction shall drive it far from him." It's in Proverbs somewhere. I don't remember the exact verse reference, but that's word for word the verse itself. And the other verse in relation to spanking was something about the rod for the fool's back. So the rod of correction, or the spanking stick, or the switch, or the club, or the rubber hose, or the wooden spoon, anything you can imagine. My vast collection of these things, like that was the rod of correction, which will drive foolishness from the heart of a child. And of course, you're not going to succeed well because children are children. And some children, the more you spank them, the more resentful they get. Some like use that to become violent or bullies themselves. Like there's a lot of ways that can go wrong depending on how harshly you implement it. And I can't say that I necessarily turned out like to be a bad person as an adult directly because of too much spanking, but all of those memories were negative, and like I hold them against my mother. So like a lot of people will have this attitude later in life where, "I was spanked as a child. I was beaten by my father with the belt whenever I was bad, and I turned out just fine." And I'm like, okay, well, I might have turned out just fine as well, but like I didn't have a good childhood because of it. It wasn't a happy childhood. And like I like resent my mom to a very high degree because of it. So like just because you technically turn out just fine doesn't mean that it has created healthy relationships with your parents who have done that to you, because oftentimes it does not. Like maybe you're the outlier that you turned out just fine, or maybe you're just a fucking liar and you didn't turn out just fine, but you're just trying to prove a point in a conversation. Or you think that because you were spanked, therefore children all should be spanked so that nobody gets a free pass, because the human brain is wired for fairness and like fairness and justice and balance. And so it doesn't feel right if like you got beaten as a child, but like the next generation got out of it. It's like, well, fuck them. There's an element of resentment there. So I think a lot of people like to pretend that they turned out just fine when maybe they didn't. and like maybe it's just made them want to pass the buck down to the next generation and like spank the next, children.
Yeah. So I mean, as I'm hearing you, like this is one of the other things that I think makes family life so much healthier without God, especially when
Right.
it comes to kids, is the whole discipline factor. Because I also was spanked as a child quite a bit. I didn't go through what you did at all. Like when I say I was spanked, like my parents, and I've said this before, and I say this in my book, and I hope if my parents ever do watch anything that I say, I hope they watch episodes like this instead of just the ones where I talk about how they, weren't as healthy as, as they could have been. My opinion of my parents is that they were probably the best possible parents I could have ever had. They're like dope, like amazing freaking parents. The problem with them is they were brainwashed with Christianity. So they had to instill certain things that the Bible taught them to do because that's just what you do. I would have been the same type of parent had I not escaped Christianity. So it's not like I think my parents are bad people. I don't. I think they're freaking wonderful. You might have had a different experience, and a lot of people do. Mine happened to be great. It's just they were brainwashed by Christianity, and so they had to continue to spank me. But it was never like abusive in that way. Like it was control. I mean, it's still abusive. Don't get me wrong. So I'm not trying to make excuses for that. But it was controlled. Like bend over. Do you know why you're getting spanked? Like that kind of thing. But yes, abusive nonetheless. And unfortunately, they did not know any better. And it's very sad because that's one of the things that religion does is it instills you with values like this, where you don't teach your children why you should be a good person. You teach them that being a good person is enforced. It's done by power. And so there's that constant feeding of this fear factor. God says to do this, and if you don't, then there's hell. Well, I tell you as a parent to do this, and if you don't, then there's the belt. And so it's you never really learn as a child why and how to develop morality because you don't learn how to be a moral agent on your own. All you learn is somebody told you what to do. You just do what you're told. So you just basically learn how to be a robot, which is extremely frustrating. And so I think that's a very unhealthy way to raise children because while Christians think, hey, we're teaching people God's law and we're forcing them to obey him. And that sounds great, except how do you distinguish between what's good and what's bad about what God wants, especially if you read the Bible? And as well as I do, if you do a quick purview of the Bible, there's a lot of things God commands that I would not consider moral at all. They're absolutely abhorrent. So how do you know at what point you're supposed to do the slavery thing or not the slavery thing, or beat your wife or not beat your wife, or stone somebody or not stone your child or not stone your child? Like, how do you know what God wants and what God doesn't? Because he doesn't come around and just talk to us anymore. Apparently, he stopped doing that. So we got to figure it out. Well, if you're going to use the Bible, you're going to have a hard time because if you're going to be honest, it's a pretty bad book. But if you're going to say, well, yeah, but that was old covenant, it's the new covenant now, and you're just supposed to, you follow God's law that he wrote on your heart. And it's like, okay, that sounds awfully subjective. Like, how do you know what God actually wants? You're just kind of making it up as you go along anyway. So it's sad because you don't really teach kids in that method how and why to do what's best for people and even yourself. You're just told to obey like a robot. And if you don't, then there's punishment. And that's sad because especially when you are raised in a Christian environment, like I was just expressing, at the end of the day, how do you actually know what is the right thing to do? Like, if I'm not a child in my home where my parents are just telling me what to do, and if I don't, they'll spank me. Once I graduate from that and I'm on my own, how do I know? How do I determine what's right and wrong if I don't have a parent dictating it to me anymore? I wasn't taught how to do that. I was just told God says so. But if I read the Bible, God says a lot of crappy things like cut open women's stomachs and tear out the babies from them. Okay, should I do that? Well, no, that's being ridiculous, Alan. Is it though? Like, where am I getting this law from? Where am I getting my obedience from? What am I supposed to follow? Like, this objective standard crap is absurd. So it doesn't actually work. We know that it doesn't work. But children are not being taught in Christian environments. Children are not being taught how to determine morality and why it's important and how to care for other people. They're just not. So when we do with our kids is quite the opposite. Like we have conversations with them. We help them understand why we're suggesting things. We give them choices. What we tell them is the only times where what we say goes is when it comes to safety or health. Because as adults, we're responsible to take care of them and make sure that they're healthy and get to a place where they can, live and on their own and make the right decisions. But when it comes to like morality and making the right decision, we try to have conversations with them and help them understand what they're doing and why maybe a decision like this would have been better or whatever. And a lot of times, even like when it comes to making a decision in the future, we'll sit down and have conversations and we'll be like, what do you think is the best thing to do? And sometimes we'll let them make the wrong decision because, that's how consequences are learned. That's how you learn as a person. And we'll tell them, that might be not a good decision, but if that's what you want to do, well, we'll do that. Anyway, so I'm talking a lot, but I mean, I think that is a big thing, in my opinion, that changed, at least for me, from being a Christian to being an atheist, and how you raise kids. The whole discipline factor and teaching morality and those kinds of things. But anyway, I'll shut up now. Go ahead, Matt. You can go ahead.
Well, I want to put a comment. This is ironically exactly what I was going to talk about once you stop talking. I want to address this. So we got somebody that says most of us were beat as a child. Not all of us were raised in a religious home. So the implication is that being spanked or beaten is maybe normal, and it doesn't take a religion to do that. Correct. That is absolutely true, that most children are spanked in some way. As far as I know, we don't have statistics on that, so I guess we're sort of making that up. But let's go with that anyway. So there's a quote that goes, a bad person will do bad things, and a good person will do good things. But it takes religion to make a good person do bad things. And when it comes to the bad things that will happen in a Christian home, otherwise good people might not have done that. So you can have parents who maybe would not have beaten their children. They're good parents. They know better ways. But the fact that the Bible tells them to do so may motivate them to do something that is not good. And on the other hand, man, I've lost my point now. Fuck. Well, you go ahead and respond to that while I recollect my thoughts.
Okay, so as far as most of us were beat as a kid, but not all of us were raised in a religious home. I mean, sure.
The fact that like to for a good person to do bad takes religion, but naturally, yeah, people are going to do bad. People are going to do good on their own, depending on the sort of person that they are. Oh yeah, now I remember what I was going to say. So the other problem is that the religion gives bad people an excuse to do bad. So like when I got older and I was no longer spanked, like I still had to suffer tremendous like verbal abuse from my mother, and a lot of it was related to religion. I was told I was going to hell. I was an evil person. I was wicked, sinful. I was irredeemable. I was not elect. If anybody's familiar with predestination, like God chooses you to be saved, or he abandons you to your sin and you go to hell by default. Like I was told that was going to happen to me. I wasn't elect. God had not chosen me. I was irredeemable. Like on and on and on. It was almost all of the verbal abuse. Almost all of it was related to religion. And while I might have been verbally abused if my mother had been an atheist, just based on her personality or her attitude or her genetics, whatever it was causing her to do that, the religion added an extra layer of protection, an excuse, a rationalization, and a justification to engage in that behavior, like automatically without a conscience, maybe stopping her from doing it. Like it's possible that, the natural empathy and love that a mother would have for their children would make them feel bad about engaging that kind of verbal abuse, but the religion told her not to feel bad about it. Like it gave her that extra protection and excuse to do it. So yes, while most children may have been beaten, whether they're in an atheist home or a Christian home, the Christian home gave an excuse to go even harder. Whereas in an atheist or secular home, it would be the parents' responsibility to justify that on their own. They are 100% responsible, not God. I said this last week. Atheism leaves no room for excuses. If you do something as an atheist, you have to own it. You cannot blame a supernatural being. You cannot say a God told you to do it. It is on you, period. But a Christian, even if they're an otherwise good person, they don't even have to be a bad person using religion as a cover to do it. Even if they're a good person, they don't necessarily want to do negative, harmful things. They will engage in it anyway, and then they'll wash their hands of it completely because they got it from a thousands of years old book that was just full of shit.
Yeah, therein lies the problem. So there are going to be people who both Christian and non-Christian who are going to go beyond what we're actually talking about. We're talking about being spanked for disobedience. Most of the time, the parents of these environments aren't going to consider it abuse. They're going to consider it a controlled spanking, like I was expressing earlier. It's not. It's still abuse, but I'm trying to draw a distinction in that it usually has to do with something directly related to disobedience, and then it's controlled. We're going to sit down. You're going to get the belt or whatever. And I hate that I'm saying this because it's definitely wrong either way. But there seems in my mind to be a difference between that and the drunkard that comes home, the drunken father who comes home every night and just starts beating the shit out of their kids and their wife or whatever. Not because of any good reason, but they're just looking for any reason to express their anger. And so while both are wrong, I think that in the religious model, as you were expressing, they try to justify it by saying, well, this is what God commands, and so it must be good. Whereas, and then of course that model is supported by those around them, their community. The church community supports that. Yes, God supports that. We're supposed to do that. Whereas the drunkard who comes home and just starts beating the shit out of their kids and punching them in their wife, no, that's wrong. We don't condone that because God doesn't want that. So there seems to be a societal difference in those two environments. However, if you step back and you actually just remove religion from it for a moment and you just ask yourself, what exactly is the difference? You're going to be hard pressed to find one, because what exactly is the difference? I mean, what are you doing that's different? You're literally just beating somebody. Like, why?
They would say that one is done in like godly love and the other is done in anger.
Sure. Yeah. And that's what they would say. And that's why I'm saying societally they're.
But from the child's perspective, especially if they're young enough, it doesn't feel any different.
Sure. No, absolutely.
And a lot of the times the drunkard who comes home is pissed about something that maybe the child did during the day. I mean, it's not always unjustified. I was beaten plenty of times when my dad came home from work. My mom said, hey, he did X today. He needs to be spanked. So I got spanked. I mean, functionally, what's the difference between the drunkard coming home and finding out you did X and you need a beating, and so he gives you the beating? Just
correct.
But further than that is that the fact that we live in a Christian society, like, they will just by default protect the drunkard's right to beat the child anyway, because they don't want to even go down that road of restricting a parent's ability to discipline a child in any way, because they're afraid that might eventually, a slippery slope, erode on their right to beat a child for legitimate reasons. So like this whole religion like gives cover to people who might not be acting under the religion, but they're still like being allowed to do certain activities just because the dominant religion doesn't want those to be interfered with. So we don't often talk about Islam on this show because we are deconverts, apostates from Christianity. But way back in the day, the era of the new atheists, I remember Sam Harris, post 9/11, would use this argument quite a bit, discussing the condition of the Middle East, the condition of modern Islam. in the environment of radical jihad. And he would say, yeah, there's a very small percentage of actual terrorists, Muslim terrorists, who want to kill infidels and murder people. And let's say it's in the center of a diagram, maybe 10%, 5 to 10%. And then the outer ring outside of that, which is maybe another 30% of Muslims, like they're fundamentalists and they approve of terrorist acts, but they're not going to engage in them themselves. And then you go out another level wider and you have slightly more moderate Muslims, and you keep adding these layers so you get to the outermost layer, which is progressive Muslims that do not approve of religious violence whatsoever and pose no threat at all. And the problem is that these layers provide cover and support for the next layer underneath them. So in the end, you have an entire society that, even though it's not overtly approving of violent acts, is providing camouflage, support, cover, all of these things needed, a support system needed for the actual extreme radicals to engage in the things that they're doing, because they don't want to overtly condemn them, because they are of the same religion, and they see this path where if they start to attack each other, they'll be more and more divided, and their religion will start to fall apart, or their own liberties will be interfered on. And we see that in Christendom in America. We live in a predominantly Christian society with the radical extremists. Like, they're a very small subsect, but every additional layer, no matter how progressive they are, provides cover for the others, because in the end, they're all believing the same general idea, which is invisible beings that are based in the Bible, no matter how progressive they are. Be the most progressive Christian in America, but you still believe in invisible beings. And you got that idea from this book, even if you don't take the book literally. Therefore, you are providing some kind of immaterial support in some indirect way to the extreme fringe Christian fundamentalists, like Baptists, that would like to burn people at the stake, literally, perhaps. So that's the problem with, like, when we go down that road of like, well, everybody was beaten as a child, or the drunkard beats the child. What's the difference? Well, the difference is the Christians might protect the drunkard because they don't want to lose their right to beat the child.
Yes, and you've just hit on something tremendous. Like, this is another reason why family life is healthier without God, because if you don't have the religious backing to try to justify why spanking is sometimes good and sometimes isn't, then we can eliminate it altogether and be like, it's just always bad. Period. Because there's no reason to beat somebody. I mean, like, literally, that's you might as well call your child a slave if you're just going to beat them. Like, that's just it is. Yeah, the books that we are living, that religions live their lives by are from so long ago. It is just mind blowing to me how long I even just bowed to it and thought, oh, well, this is wonderful. This is just a great book. It's not. It's just so bad, man. But I lived like that, and thank goodness before I ever had my own child, I escaped that crap, man, because I would have probably been the same asshole and justified that shit. And it's like, and it makes me sick. Like it is amazing to me what this mind virus does, bro. It, like you said earlier, it takes good people and it makes them bad people. Yeah. And it takes religion to do that.
It's very frustrating. It's very shameful that we came out of it so late. Like, I came out at 35. You came out how old?
42.
Yeah. And when you call it a mind virus, there's a very, very, this is not a political show, and I'm not going to talk politics. I'm going to be very vague about this. Okay. But like, there's a very fine line between religion and politics, because like, that mind virus is a real thing, and it applies to all beliefs, especially false ones, but all beliefs. When a belief gets into your head, it's very, 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 most of the time, impossible to shake it and get rid of it when it becomes that implanted. So, leaving a religion is much like switching sides in politics or abandoning a particular charismatic politician. when you find out that they're not actually for you, but you've gone so far down that road, and like it becomes a belief. And it's like, how bad can something get? Whether it's a corrupt politician or whether it's a religious book like the Bible, how bad can something get before you finally wake up and you're like, you know what? This is like, I just can't tolerate anymore. This is so obvious. I have to abandon this belief. But at some point it's like, dude, you should have abandoned that corrupt politician or that radical belief a long time ago. You waited so long, had to get so bad before you saw the light. It's like, what the fuck was wrong with you? Like, now it's like, I don't even want to accept you onto the right side of history or onto the right side of truth, because how can I trust you? You went so far down the wrong road, like refusing to see the light for so long that it's like your very ability to reason has been damaged beyond repair. Like, oh, now you want to get on the right side of history, or now you want to get on the right side of truth? Like, why should I? It's like you had 1,000 chances before. Like, there's something wrong with you. And that has bothered me for a long time, because I'm like, yeah, I believe everybody believes that they're rational. But sometimes I question my own rationality. I'm like, maybe I left for irrational reasons. Like, maybe nobody is rational ever, period. Maybe it's always for feelings-based reasons. But I just have to go with what I believe is the most reasonable. So I'm kind of stuck. It's like hard solipsism. You're just kind of stuck with your brain. You're stuck with what you got. I can't prove I'm rational. Can't prove my motivations were rational, even though I can show my process was, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if we're talking about being rational, like it seems to me that rational people are the ones that modify their views regularly, because like if you're rational, you recognize that life.
I went for so long, though. I went for so long without modifying my views at all. It's like, how can I say I'm rational now?
I mean, did you though? You never did. That's okay. I don't know you. I don't know your story from before.
No,
but
well, I mean, I was a hardcore far right conservative fundamentalist until like 33, 4, 5. I mean, that was it. Like and everyone I knew was the same way. Like, nobody had modified their views whatsoever for their entire life.
So maybe you didn't change your views in religion, but did you not change your views in politics or math or science or anything?
No, I did not. I did not. I didn't change any views whatsoever until I left. Well, until about a year before I left Christianity.
Well, yeah, you're irrational then. You should just trust me and just do what I tell you, man.
Okay. But is that rational?
Yeah, I guess
it's irrational to trust you, and I'm irrational, so I guess I'll trust you.
maybe my thought is wrong then, because I consider you a rational person, but I guess I don't know.
Doesn't it ever bother you this idea that humans can be rational? Like, how do we know? Maybe it's always for irrational reasons, even when it's a rational process, if you know what I mean. Like, you can get to the truth through a rational process, but how do you know you're rational? Like, how do you know you accepted it for a rational reason if you don't have access to exactly what's going on inside of your brain? Yeah, I mean, you only know how you feel, really. I think that's universal. Like, you only know how you feel.
Yeah. Well, I can solve this right now. Zaviliak 4660 says we're two bozos talking. So there you go. We're good.
I'll keep that comment up there. Keep that comment.
Okay, keep it up there.
Yeah, because he wants to call us bozos, but he can't spell talking correctly.
Right. I'm assuming it's talking, unless he meant two bozos tailing. I mean, I don't. Are we tailing? I don't know what that means.
Yeah, who's the bozo here? You could, if you're going to insult us, at the very minimum, like, get your spelling correct so you don't look like an idiot, because this makes you look like an idiot, bozo.
Maybe he'll come on and talk to us. Yeah, but we do have Richie is back with us, and I am going to bring him on right now. Richie, what's up, man?
Hey, how's it going?
Bro, I have a bone to pick with you, man. Where the hell have you been?
I just texted you. I just texted you back. So
you just texted me back? It's been like fucking weeks, man.
I've been so busy, like, with the upcoming Medicare season, so it's been bad. So I apologize, but yeah, you can have a bone to pick with me later. But
Well, I would, but I can never get a hold of you, so I can't pick it with you anywhere
sorry, that's my bad. So, but hey, Elliot,
It's good to see you, though, man. It's good to see you. I'm just kidding with you. I mean, I am, but I'm not. But it's good to see you anyway.
It's okay. I totally deserve it. I'm totally depraved. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, you're here. You're here now, and that's all that matters.
Well, actually, I'm going to pop this back up because I'm not convinced I'm the one of the two. I think it's you two are the bozos.
Hey, that comment was there before.
Oh, it was? Okay. Well,
Nice
I guess that's
try,
not going to
Ellen. Yeah, you're not going to make that stick.
Well, we're going to be two bozos tailing Richie, I guess.
Well, I guess I can be. Well, if I'm a bozo, I can say God made me do it. You know, because I'm a Christian, so I have the excuse, right?
That's true, and I'm really sorry about that.
You have that excuse for a lot of things. You don't take responsibility for your own actions because you're.
That is totally not true because I believe in. So,
well, but it's always available for you if you do want to not take responsibility, right?
I guess that would depend if I was a Calvinist or not, but anyway, so yeah, the topic is life healthier without God? I would actually say
it's family life.
Family life.
Right.
You know,
well, I mean, life too, I suppose, but yeah, family life's a specific topic.
I was thinking more just life, but you know, this is family life. I mean, I didn't grow up in a Christian home. Like my dad's actually an atheist, and my mom was New Age, so like they were like complete opposites, right? And my mom kind of like buffeted each religion and just kind of like took the best parts of each religion, I guess. And so my dad didn't believe in any of it. So, I mean, it was interesting growing up, but I don't really know what it's like to grow up in a Christian home. But from what I've gathered from other people, like I think something that can be damaging, believe it or not, is actually purity culture. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of that.
We did not touch on that tonight.
Not only heard of it, lived it.
Okay. Yeah, the only thing I've specifically criticized was corporal punishment, like Christianity giving parents like the right to spank children, like maybe too severely, or they have a justification under the Bible to do that, even if it's unhealthy. Yeah,
so I actually talked with Alan about this a little bit, like the one time I was on. Yeah, like I don't believe in spanking. I don't think that passage in Proverbs is like giving a prescription to like beat your children. I think it's more just like kind of like a metaphor for shepherding, like guiding somebody in the way that they should go, right? Not to like beat them. So
what about what about the verse that says the rod for the fool's back? Is that metaphorical too?
Well, the rod for the fool's back, that's I don't think that's supposed to be a prescriptive passage for parenting, but yeah, the rod in the fool's back, it's basically, well, yeah, it's not talking about parenting. It's just talking about like, you know, a fool who's just stuck in their own ways, which actually a lot of Christians can be stuck in their own ways. You could beat this person 1,000 times, you know, and then like they still won't learn their lesson, right? So it's just kind of like the fool never learns. So
sure, but let's just say you're a parent and you already, because one of the things I had said on the show so far is like a good person will do good, a bad person will do bad, but for a good person to do good takes religion. So let's say that you might not be the greatest person and you want to beat your child when they act up. You want to take advantage of that. So you have these two verses, and like one says, foolishness is bound in the heart of a child, but the rod of correction will drive far from him. And the other one says the fool and the rod for the fool's back. So we have a double use of both terms. You know, even though the fool that gets the rod on his back might not be a child, we still have context for that word, like found in the other verse, the foolishness in a child in their heart. So we have it's like rod, fool, hey, this seems like this could justify some corporal punishment here, even if it doesn't technically. But as a Christian, I can use that as an excuse to go ahead and do it.
Well,
Does that-
and before you respond, Richie, let me just say what you're saying, Elliot, in a different way. Is plenty of Christians use the Bible to justify things that you would not justify. You would say, "Oh, well, I don't think that the Bible's teaching that." So you have your own interpretation, and so you would not agree with that. But you can't disagree that the Bible itself has been used to justify things like corporal punishment and spanking. It's a terrible usage of the Bible, maybe, but nonetheless, it's still used, right, for that purpose.
Yeah, I would say that probably, like, because wisdom literature is kind of interesting to interpret. For anybody in the audience who's interested in Bible interpretation, a good book is How to Read the Bible for All It's Worth by Gordon Fee and Douglas Stewart. But yeah, I mean, anybody could use the Bible to like justify anything, really. I mean, like for example, with the with the Proverbs, right? So there's a passage that says, "Don't move the ancient landmarks," right? Because like you shouldn't. Don't move these ancient landmarks. And so I've heard it preached that you cannot question anything because the people of old put these boundary markers there to begin with, and you should never question why they're there, right? But actually, if you study the ancient Near East and the context of the passage, right, in the ancient world, you could, like, what people would do, like, boundary markers were to divide your property, right, from your neighbor. So there was a law that if something wandered into your property, it was considered yours. So what people would do is they would move these boundary markers to where certain cattle and certain like their neighbors' cattle was like on their property, but it would make it seem like it was actually my property. And so the application is that it's stealing, right? So essentially, the proverb is telling you don't steal from your neighbor, but so but the original application, see, I misused that passage, or I've heard it misused to say, well, you should never question anything being taught. And so I'm not sure if I explained that very well, but the
No,
point
that
is,
makes sense.
yeah, the point is that anybody can take an ancient book and use it for,
Sure.
whatever. I mean, not to get political or anything like that. I would say too that people use the Bible to have this undying, unwavering allegiance to Israel. All right, but we don't have to get into that. I'm just saying that.
Yeah. So the question for me is, I mean, if the Bible is God's word and it is so unclear that it's used by different denominations and different peoples to justify all these horrid actions, what good purpose does it actually serve? Especially if it's not giving the information we need it to give about a God or about salvation or anything like that. What is a good purpose for it? We'd be better off without it.
Well, before we go down that road, real quick, because I want to stick with this idea of spanking children just for a second.
Sure.
Let's leave the wisdom literature of Proverbs behind, since it can be taken metaphorically and it's a bit messier to interpret. And let's go to the Mosaic Law itself.
Sure.
While the Mosaic Law doesn't explicitly endorse spanking a children or beating them, it does, in fact, give a prescription or proscription for executing a child that is disobedient, to the point where they can't control him by taking him outside the town and stoning him to death. So if we are going to actually literally, I assume literal, because that's like what, I don't know how that can be taken metaphorically, but if we are going to literally execute children with violence and their parents are going to do it, doesn't that at least open up the door to justify not going that far, but like using violence as a correction?
Yeah. So to my understanding, that passage is more like Deuteronomy is the second giving of the law. So talking about like federal laws to Israel, right? So it's more of a like a capital punishment, like from like a federal level, not just like a yeah, like you said, it's not corporal punishment for children, but like if
Well,
a
it's
kid
worse.
if a kid is so like Well, like even in our
wouldn't it be more loving of me to beat a child to avoid having to later execute him?
I don't see the significance of that question.
Well, if I let a child get too rebellious and crazy, and it's going to result in him being taken outside of town, stoned to death, like maybe the loving thing to do would be to like take some medium measures, like maybe beating him into submission to avoid later having to have him executed for rebelliousness would be a loving act, would it not?
I don't see that as a loving act, but
If it saves his life.
I would say, well, we know statistically that corporal punishment doesn't work anyway.
We didn't know that back then.
Sure, they didn't know that back then, but well,
wait, but did God know that, or is he figuring it out as he went too?
No, I mean God knows all things. So, but like, I guess that's a disagreement. Like, I don't think that the Bible gives a prescriptive, it gives a prescription for parents to beat their children. I mean, and that's just me. I mean, maybe somebody else.
It actually gives a prescription on to stone their children to death.
How do you think that they disciplined their children back then in ancient Israel? You think they just gave them verbally gave them correction and chastised them and didn't beat them, and then eventually had to execute them if they were bad enough? I mean, you really think they didn't use the rod on a child?
Oh, I'm not. Maybe they did. I have no idea. So that's like we don't know for sure how they discipline children. We can only assume that they beat them, right? Because of the way that certain passages are phrased in the Bible. But yes, God knows all things, and God, I don't know. Yeah. So with the capital punishment, like if a child gets so bad, like even in our country, if a child commits murder, right, they're almost tried as an adult because of the severity of the crime. So
only if they're a certain age. We don't try 12-year-olds as adults, and we never under Supreme Court law, case law, we never sentence them to death.
Okay, well again, these are Israel's laws, so
yeah. So it seems a lot harsher, but it's also it's not Israel's law, it's God's law. It's like coming straight from God, right?
Yeah, I just want to read this because I'm confused that we aren't sure that this is in the Bible. So right here in verses 18 through 21, if someone has, and this is coming directly from God, this is his law, his moral law. If someone has a stubborn and rebellious son who does not obey his father and mother and will not listen to them when they are disciplining him, his father and mother shall take hold of him and bring him to the elders of the gate of his town. They shall say to the elders, this son of ours is rebellious. He will not obey us. He is a glutton and a drunkard. Then all the men of his town are to stone him to death. You must purge the evil from among you. All Israel will hear it and be afraid.
Okay, so, well, number one, I would say that I did know this was, there's no debate that this is in the Bible, obviously. The question is does this condone corporal punishment? No, I would say and I would even say that this is not considered a moral law. This is considered a judicial law from God that was given to Israel. So
why would it matter?
No, I'm just saying that.
Well, judicial or moral? Why would are you saying that God can give a judicial law that's immoral? Wouldn't they both be moral?
Wait, say that again.
If it's coming from God, why would it matter if it's judicial or moral? Wouldn't they both be moral because they're coming from God?
Yes, but like, I guess the judicial law can change, but the moral law cannot. So that would be the difference in application, is like from the two.
Sure,
but how does that justify that a God who knows all things would think that this was a good idea at any point in history?
Even if it could change at that specific moment, like that was God's law.
Sure. Yeah,
so
I mean that
God was justified. Yeah, I just find it interesting that we want to find a way out of corporal punishment, but we're allegedly okay with capital punishment.
No,
it's such a strange.
No, I'm just saying for myself, I don't think the Bible teaches corporal punishment. I'm not trying, like, now if it did, I would say, okay, then it did, and I would just happen to disagree.
Disagree with which? You would disagree with the Bible if it did?
Yeah, I would disagree with that. Yeah,
So there are times when you disagree with the Bible?
of course there are times I disagree with the Bible, but
Well, I guess I don't know where you're coming from. I don't know your worldview when it comes to the Bible. This brings up a lot of questions. Like, do you believe the Bible is inspired by God and is inerrant and is literal? Like, how do you treat it?
yeah. So I think that I would say that the Bible. So as a Christian, I would agree with the premise that the Bible's infallible, but it's infallible theologically. It doesn't mean that it's like it doesn't mean that it's perfect in the sense that it doesn't have spelling errors. It doesn't have things that it could get wrong, like as far as like something in science or like something that has to do with the world. It could get something wrong, but it's never theologically incorrect. Like it's trying to teach us some theological lesson about God and about how reality is in the spiritual life.
Well, how do you decide which parts to agree with and which parts to not agree with?
Well, so okay, so like corporal punishment, like let's say for the sake of discussion, the Bible taught corporal punishment, right? So the practical application, like like corporal punishment is not a spiritual practice. Like it doesn't tell us anything about God, right? So this is not something that we would say is like a moral law. We wouldn't say that this is something that's it doesn't pertain to anything theological. This is just this is just a practice that people do. So it doesn't make it correct. Now, if like yeah, I don't see any how it would have any theological significance. Like whether somebody
you might, I mean, you might not think it has theological significance, but you're not God. Like perhaps God thinks it does have theological significance, and that's why he put it in there. Because everything that God does would, I assume, from the Christian worldview, has a purpose and is important, or God would not engage in it. So maybe it's just the fact that you haven't connected the dots, perhaps.
Well, I mean, it's kind of like okay, so there are some laws like people are to build fences around the roof of their house in the old covenant, right? So these laws obviously do not pertain to everybody at all times because like not everybody has houses like that, you know. So just because something is in the Bible doesn't mean that it's like a forever thing at all time. That it's not something that we strictly have to like do. It's something. It's that's the difference between prescriptive and descriptive texts, right? So,
But I want to bring you back because we're getting too far away from Elliot's original question. How are you distinguishing between the two?
how do I? That's a really good question. So how I would distinguish between the two is like I guess yeah, I would just determine, you know, it was this law for Israel and how does this pertain to the new covenant? Because obviously we're not under the covenant that was given to Israel. And so like I yeah, I don't know how else to describe it.
Let me put it like this. I don't mean to be like insulting, but this is used against atheists a lot when in the morality discussions. And it's like, well, the Christian says, well, I have this foundation, but you just get your morality from vibes and preferences. And like, what prevents me from saying to someone like you, well, it sounds like you're determining theology from non-theology by just vibes and preferences. I mean, if you don't have a hard and fast rule on how to determine the difference, sounds like it's just vibes, like just how you feel about it.
Yeah. So I would say too, like it's for me, it's not just the Bible; it's also the church, it's tradition. So like I'm not scripture
More
alone.
vibes, just more vibes.
More vibes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, if they don't have if they don't have a system, like
Well,
like similar to the scientific process of like how to determine like what's what and what applies to who and when and how, like what's the difference between just vibes and feelings
between, are you asking between like the church's tradition and
whether it's church authority, tradition, or the way you feel about it when you read it, like all those different things, like what is the difference between what they're doing and just, hey, I like this, so I'm going to go with it? Like, how do we know church authority or tradition is any better than them just saying at one point in history, because that's where we get church tradition, hey, we really like this, we're going to go with it, and like then everybody has to just follow it because, hey, we're the guys who have the authority, but their authority is nothing but vibes anyway.
Well, so I guess the difference would be that from the Christian paradigm, right, these traditions came directly from Christ, who is God, who came from heaven. So like the source is from God himself, and this tradition has been passed on. So it's not like the church just makes things up as they go.
Well, then the problem with your source material is that you can keep removing layers like that and passing the buck of responsibility, and I'll just follow it down to the next layer and say, well, okay, where'd you get that? So Jesus said that. How do you know? Somebody wrote that. Wasn't Jesus. I don't think Jesus wrote a single word, that by everyone's admission. So maybe that dude, whoever wrote that, was making it up too. Just more assumptions, more vibes. Like there's like nothing there at the end of the line where the buck stops. Every time you peel back another layer, it's just more made up.
I mean, I can see how you could think that, but it doesn't necessitate that you just think it's vibes. I mean, like I said, if a tradition has been maintained for however long, whether it was 100 years, 1,000 years, 2,000 years,
all
right?
that means is that a lot of people shared the same vibe for a long time.
Well, then you could just say anything, like literally everything is a vibe. Like
yeah, that's the problem. Yeah. Now you're getting it. Everything is, and we got a problem. What do we do?
Well, okay. So do you mean like if like the fact that E equals MC squared, like, is that just a vibe?
So now you've entered into a different arena, though, because where we started was theology and like written stories. You're now trying to apply that to science. I'm saying, do you have anything that is as solid as science to apply to the arena of vibes-based morality and stories from old books?
Well, I was trying to understand from your perspective. So like, I didn't just mean to get into science, because you asked a question about epistemology, like how do we know?
Science can show its work. That's the problem. Religion cannot do that. The religion has no foundation.
No, religion can show its work. Like if something historical, like if like religion can show its work through philosophy and through history. So,
but those are different disciplines, and they have different sets of rules. So to try to equate them to something like equations and math is not a fair analogy, because every field of study has different rules that apply to it. So I cannot do history in the same way that I can do math. In math, I can show my work, other people can check it, and there is no disagreement. It works. But when I get to history, it's really, really messy. It's based on probabilities. So it's like it's a completely different ballgame. And I'm saying you are applying the certainty. You are plagiarizing the certainty of math and trying to apply that to something as foundationally flawed as history, which by very definition cannot be certain.
Elliot, everything is probability. Literally everything is probability.
How do you figure that?
Because even like because we don't know, we can't know anything with absolute certainty. We just
do you agree with what I said, that different fields of studies have different rules?
Yes, I agree.
Okay, so you understand that history is difficult to know what happened, and we have to use probabilities, versus a field like mathematics that can show its work and can prove things out through equations. I mean, you do understand that there are different levels of knowing.
Yeah, I understand that.
So for you to have the level of claim, you have the level of knowing from math, but you have it in theology, like that does not work. It's impossible.
I think the key here is independent verification. You can do that with math and science. You can't do that with history.
Well, what I was going to say is, like, even with science, like, yes, you can show your work, like evolution. I mean, it's pretty much a fact, right? Like, I mean, we can't say it with 100% certainty, and yes, I may be able to have more certainty in evolution than if, I don't know, let's say, like the story about Troy and like whether Philo existed or whether Plato existed, right? Like whether any of these people existed. Like I can know that evolution is true more than probably these historical claims, but it's still probability. Like you can't know it with 100% certainty.
My point
but the difference.
My point is that E equals MC squared is not vibes. 2 + 2 = 4 is not based on vibes. But when I get into the arena of theology, based on the hundreds and thousands of different interpretations coming out of the same verses, just by different people, like that's vibes, dude. That's how these people come to these conclusions. That's why they fight all the time. That's why none of them agree. That's why nobody can show their work. Nobody can show 2 + 2 = 4 and have that level of certainty. That's why I say one is vibes and one is a different level of knowing.
Okay.
Like when it comes to the mathematical equations, if we assume certain things about life, like the uniformity of nature, for example, then it becomes more certain, if you will. Obviously, we can't know that tomorrow is going to be the same as today, so we allow for that possibility, which is why science doesn't make declarations. It makes models, and it says based upon what we know and what we can observe and the testing we've done and the fact that our predictions have come true, this is the most likely scenario. And the only reason that theories don't become, definitive statements is just because we understand that things change. But for the most part, do we really expect gravity to stop existing? Probably not. It's just the way reality is, given the same factors we have today. Now, if factors about our universe change, then yes, sure, that'll go away. But when it comes to history, when it comes to things you're talking about, tradition and whatever, we don't have even probability to that degree. We have possibility. We have, hey, this is a really good possibility, but this could also be true. And so could this. Like when it comes to the existence of Jesus, for example, could he have existed? Yeah, sure. Why not? Could he not have? Sure. It could have been a myth. Could he have rose from the dead? Yeah. Could he not have? Yeah, that's also possible. We just don't know with certainty because we don't have the type of data that we do when it comes to mathematics and science. We can't factor that kind of data in. So to draw conclusions based upon things that are just possibilities is a really bad way to determine truth, is what we're saying, or at least what I'm saying. Maybe Elliot disagrees with what I just said, but
no, because I agree that you can know certain things that are true more so than other things, right? So I would say I have more certainty. I would honestly say, like, just being completely honest, I would say I have more certainty. Actually, no, I would say I have more certainty that if I drop a rock, that it's going to fall to the floor than I do that God exists.
great. And so the fact remains then that the conclusions being drawn on these supernatural things are insufficient to draw a conclusion. Like you can't really just say, well, because the church said so, it must be true.
No, that's not the argument.
Right. No, I know you have the three stools things, but either way, like the problem is those three stools are working within a matrix within themselves that are built around a theological system that without that theological system, those three legs are insignificant. They just don't even matter to life. Only with this system of theology do those three legs even matter. So remove the theology from it, it's like, what's the point of those three legs? They don't even have any factor in life.
Well,
the Bible and tradition.
Richie, what is your church?
I'm Orthodox.
Okay. And so
Well,
you
trying to be. But
you use the church authority as one way of knowing, I assume.
yeah, like so. Yeah, the church has the authority to say, like, this is applicable, this is not applicable, and they do that
Right.
based on tradition.
Right. So it factors into how you interpret the Bible, obviously. The problem is, well, how did you determine that that was the correct church to have authority? Because there are others, like the Catholic Church asserts church authority over their members as well. So, like, how did you come to the conclusion that like one is better than the other? Because if you're going to then use that standard after, then how are you not the standard, if you know what I mean? Because you had to conclude the Orthodox Church was to have authority over you versus the Catholic Church having authority over you. So in the end, it's always you, right? You're the authority, not the church.
Well, I am the authority over my own reasoning. I mean, I ultimately I would say that like everybody individually is in charge of their own reasoning, whether they might be brainwashed or not. But like I have to be the one to determine what which church is true, if any at all are true, right? So
Doesn't that put you above the church just by default?
no,
But
because
you're the judge. You're judging that to be the correct church before you use it as a standard. Therefore, you're above the church. You judged it.
yeah, but what else do I have? I mean, God gave me reasoning, so like what other
Well, that's just a
That's all you
presupposition you're
have.
making. Hang
That's all
on.
you have.
That, like I know you say God gave you that because that's just what you think is true, but like that is a claim that is like even take what Elliot's argument, even take what Elliot's saying here to you about the church, take that a step further to God. You had to be the one to decide that God was the standard that you wanted to live by. So even that makes you superior to God. So you've decided God is this factor. So you don't even know for sure that God exists. You've decided he exists.
Well, it's worse. It's worse than that, because if God gave you that ability to reason, then He also gave me the ability to reason, and we've come to different conclusions, which means our ability to reason is not worth much. Because if it was correct, and that's all we had, shouldn't we both come to the same conclusion, which would prove that our ability to reason is correct? Then we can trust it. But we've come to different conclusions using the same ability that God apparently gave both of us.
Okay, so there's my answer and then there's the Orthodox answer. Which one do you want?
Well, if you've accepted the Orthodox answer, then therefore you have judged the Orthodox answer to be correct. Therefore, it's all your answer.
Well, I would happen to agree with the Orthodox answer, but I mean I could explain it in maybe non-theological ways. Like I can describe to you what I think and not use like church lingo or anything like that.
However you want to do it.
Okay, so what was the question again?
Well, I don't remember how far back the question would be, but a question now that I'm asking is, how do we determine what the truth is? What's our foundation? Because as far as I can tell, our foundation it ends with us. It's just how we feel about it. Because you have judged the Orthodox position to be correct. Like, that's a feeling. Like, you're the arbiter. You're the final judge. So that, I mean, we're stuck with right here being all that we've got.
Well, I wouldn't. Sorry, were you done?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, okay. I wouldn't just say like I said, I wouldn't just say it was a vibe. Like I read church history, I saw what the early Christians were doing, and so based upon my reasoning ability and my senses and judgment, things like that, I have come to the conclusion that the Orthodox Church is the church that Jesus established. Now, somebody else may come to a different conclusion. Like, okay, that's fine. I mean, I can't, and nor do I really have any interest in changing your mind.
Yeah, but Richie, by what you just said, the church is not the ultimate authority. Then you are.
When it comes to theological matters, yeah, the church is.
No,
yeah.
no. Even you are there because you have decided that the church is the authority on theological matters. You're
Correct.
still ultimately deciding who is the standard for decision making. So
Sure.
no matter how you put it, you are the ultimate authority over what you decide is authority.
Yes.
Let,
No.
let's
Yes.
let's say I've got a ruler right here. I wish I had one to make for a better object lesson, but like I tell you, like, I default to this authority to measure inches. This is my authority. The problem is, at some point I had to judge that to be the authority, which makes me above the ruler. And the ruler only measures in inches anyway. So if I were to use a different metric, I would get different answers. So the ruler in this case would be the Orthodox Church, but there's like 5 other competing rulers. I've judged this one to be the correct one for this specific measurement. It puts me above all the rulers. Like, how do I find my way out of that? How can I ever say, how can I ever actually put the responsibility onto the ruler and say the ruler is objective and it's above me, when I made a subjective judgment on that ruler to be what I'm going to follow? So for you, the Orthodox Church, you've judged it. It's your ruler. You might default to it on theological matters, but you're still above it because your mind could be changed at some point, and you could say, you know what, I no longer agree with the Orthodox Church. I've been convinced using my reasoning that the Catholic Church is the correct ruler, and then you jump to the Catholic Church. Now you follow them. How do you escape this problem of hard solipsism where it all stops with you? You are the ruler.
Okay, so I don't have an answer to hard solipsism. I don't think anybody does, but like I just assume, I just assume that I am not the only person that exists. But
I didn't mean that literally when I said hard solipsism. What, like, more metaphorically, like, we're trapped inside of our brains. Like, I obviously assume that we share a reality. I'm just saying that our reasoning is all we have in the end. I don't actually believe I'm the only brain.
Right.
I just mean we don't have a choice.
Right. So it's kind of like at one point you use the ruler as like, I'm just arbitrarily judging that this ruler is true, like just because I randomly decided this is the one that's true.
No, you may have had reasons, but they're your reasons. You've judged them to be good reasons.
Yes, I mean, like testing on like what works and things like that. Like, so maybe one metric measures something in a more precise way than another one, right? And
In your opinion,
this is, well, if the results are there, I would say, yeah, like if the data supports it.
I mean, okay, so I'm with you, Richie, on this. Like, there are objective ways to determine truth. There are objective ways to determine whether or not something is right, because
Right.
Only if we agree that
you can evaluate the world.
only if we
you can
agree
evaluate.
that objective.
Yeah, so my choosing of the Orthodox Church, it's not like it's just arbitrary. Like, well, you know what? I'm just going to decide to be Orthodox today. Like, no, like there are reasons. Now, ultimately, yes, I have to decide whether these reasons convince me or not. But at the end of the day, like, yes, I would agree with you that I am the ultimately the one who makes the decision, like if I'm going to follow religion or not, or believe this or not.
I understand where you're going with the Richie, and I'm not sure if Elliot would agree with what I'm saying, but I may disagree with you, Elliot, on one thing. Hang on, let me finish my thought here. So when it comes to the ruler analogy, you subjectively decide that the ruler is going to be the objective source by which you determine measurements, because it actually measures. It actually does what it's supposed to do. So you can actually utilize that, and you can say, okay, objectively, independently, we can, all three of us, sit down with this ruler and we can say, okay, we need some form of measurement that's going to get us this long, and we need to know how we're going to calculate it. All three of us can sit down and be like, okay, let's look at this ruler, and we can all agree this is an objective source. It's going to definitely get us what we want, and we can all verify it together because it works. When it comes to church tradition or the church councils or whatever, they're also very subjective. There's nothing objective about that. You don't have a way to objectively measure whether these guys are right or wrong. It's just, well, we like that they said something, and so we're going to go with it. But there's no way to measure whether what they say is right or wrong. So if they say that an interpretation of the Bible means this is part of God's law that is just educational, it's supposed to be for theology. How do you measure that? How do you sit down independently and verify that? Like, you literally can't, other than interpreting the text yourself and deciding whether they're right or wrong, which in this case, they're no longer the ruler anymore. You're deciding they're right or wrong. So you actually didn't need them because you figured it out for yourself.
Okay, well, I would say, so yeah, I would say like through tradition, right? Like if the earliest Christians that we know of believed X about a certain Bible verse, right? So then if we see that throughout history, then we can deduce that this was what the earliest Christians believed, because and that this is right because every Christian tradition since the time of Christ have kept this tradition. So it's not like it's arbitrary, like, oh yeah, I like this tradition.
No, but that is arbitrary, because testimony can people believe they're right about something and still be wrong?
Oh yeah. Yeah, delusion.
Well, no, not even delusion. Like just reconsolidated memory, for example. Like you can remember things incorrectly because time has influenced your memory on the factors. So no matter how much testimony we have, the reason testimony is not a sufficient source to determine or a justification or a judgment on anything is because it can always be flawed. Like, there's no way to measure whether that person is actually accurate or not. You're going off of memory. You're going off of what they saw. People have bad eyesight. Maybe they smelled something incorrectly. Like, there's no way to know for sure that it's accurate. You think it is, you want it to be, you hope it is, but they could have all been wrong. There's just no way of knowing. Whereas an objective source like a ruler, it's going to measure the same thing every time, so we can keep coming back to it, and it's always going to be the same.
Well, it's actually worse than that, because you're saying that something is more likely to be true because the first Christian said it. Well, what if the first Christians just got it wrong in the first place? You know, if you cement an error in the very beginning and then it remains an error for 2,000 years, it's still an error. Like, how do we know they were right just because they were early?
So, I mean, do you think that the apostles were such terrible teachers that the next generation of Christians didn't understand anything that they taught?
No, what I think is that the Gospels are our only sources for what the apostles may or may not have taught, and the Gospels were not written by apostles, and they could have been made up stories. We have absolutely no idea for any level of certainty what the apostles might have taught. Just don't know.
Okay, yeah, I mean, yeah, we don't know that with absolute certainty, but like
any level of certainty, it's just a claim.
Sure, but again, that's where it comes to probability. Like, what probably is the case? I mean, the majority, like, is it true? Is it true, or is it possible that the early Christians died out and like some fake version of Christianity really took over the whole time, right? Sure, it's
possible. It was made up from the very beginning. Maybe they got the story right all along for 2,000 years, but maybe the original story was made up. Like, we don't know.
You're assuming it's made up.
I'm not assuming. I'm saying we don't know. Like, you say that it's based on probabilities, but you're coming at that from the positive side of like the probability that it's right. Have you ever considered the probability that it's wrong, or the probability that you're wrong in your interpretation?
All the time.
Because I've actually done the mathematical calculations on the probability that a particular Christian sect is wrong, and it's astronomical. Like, it's a fraction of a percent that you're actually right, based on all the competing interpretations, denominations, churches. Like, the probability of being right about ultimate spiritual truth is so small if you use a probability calculator and you do the math yourself. Like, that's why I'm not a Christian.
So are you saying that like are you saying that you have statistics of whether or not the the Orthodox Church is the true church or
Yes.
not?
Yes.
Okay.
So I wrote a really long essay about this a few years back. And the premise is that if I map every religious belief ever in existence, like, onto the globe, and like I step outside of it, like as an atheist, I don't believe God exists, and I have to find my way all the way back through that matrix to that exact denomination where I was previously. Like, I was a fundamentalist Baptist with a very specific interpretation. I believed I was 100% correct before I left Christianity. If I were to step outside of that matrix and try to find my way all the way back, just on the raw probabilities that that specific point on the globe is the correct spiritual truth, it doesn't matter what denomination that is. It could be Buddhist, could be Orthodox. It doesn't matter. But if I put every decision point in that matrix into a probability calculator, it is so unlikely that that's the correct spiritual truth that I'm almost certainly incorrect, just based on the raw probabilities that could be
About any religion, faith.
any of them. Because there's so many different questions I would have to work through if I were being a rational person. I'd have to answer every one of those to get all the way back. I'm almost certainly not at the right spot.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, whichever religion or worldview is the easiest to defend, I mean, that's the one I'm going to adopt. So,
Is easiest to defend? Is that what you said?
Yeah, the one that's the easiest to defend. I would love to.
So you determine truth based on ease?
Well, whichever one I think is the most philosophically sound, yeah, and which one is the most demonstrable.
Well, the problem is that every religion maps onto reality in some way that can be demonstrated. Otherwise, those religions wouldn't exist.
I'm not just talking about religion. I'm talking about any worldview.
Yeah, and there's a reason that worldviews exist right alongside religions. Every worldview maps onto reality in some way, or they would not exist. Every idea is subject to natural selection.
Okay.
So you have to pick one and say this is it. You have a very steep hill to climb to prove any of them.
About one particular worldview.
And you could say one. Well, you could say one's the easiest to defend, but like, how do you know that?
Through reason, right? Through good argument.
Well, have you ever tried to defend any other worldview? Have you ever tried to defend the I don't know, the Buddhist worldview?
Well, I don't even know the Buddhist worldview.
Exactly. So how do you know yours is the easiest to defend?
I don't.
Exactly.
I don't. Yeah, I don't see
That's
what's
the problem.
Why is it a problem?
It's a problem because you picked one. You have hiked to the top of the hill, planted your flag, and said this is the truth. When you're
if you know what, if whichever worldview, like it could be a Buddhist worldview. Like if some kind of worldview came to me and I found that this was better than Christianity, I would become that.
See,
well, we've got one for you.
That's where I am, dude. That's where I am. I am on the outside. I'm all the way on the outside, and one has not appeared to me yet, and so I withhold judgment.
Okay, so
why would I pick one? Why would I pick one unless I've investigated everything?
Yes, thank you. That's the whole point here. Is Christians land and say definitively no, this is the truth, and yet you definitively don't know, and yet you've planted your flag. We're agnostic atheists for the very reason that we say we don't know. We're going to wait. We're going to withhold judgment until we do. Are there some that seem better than others? Yeah, but I'm not planting my flag. You have planted your flag with uncertainty and claimed certainty, and this is the problem.
And for anybody that says like you need a religion or a worldview to live your life is incorrect, because I have neither, and I still get up every morning to my alarm clock, still eat breakfast, still go to work, still live my life. I don't require a worldview. I don't require a religion. Like, miraculously, I keep functioning. It's crazy.
Okay. Cool.
Sorry, we'll give you the last word. We've got some guys lined up waiting. So
anyway,
whatever you
family
wanna
life
say.
is better without God, we think, because we don't teach our kids which religion to believe. but neither were you. So there you go.
But yeah, we'll give you the last word, Richie. You can say whatever you want.
No. I think that you are, like, without realizing it, I think you are positing a worldview. It's just one void of religion. So, but yeah, so essentially you've come to the conclusion that your worldview is the best one, where I've based on everything, like, and your worldview is based upon everything that you've heard yourself. Like, because we're really in the same boat. It's just you have atheism, which isn't necessarily a worldview. It's a part of your worldview.
I have to
Hold on,
interrupt.
Ellen. Hold on, Ellen.
I'm sorry. I have to
Hold on.
correct
No,
this
hold on. 1 sec. Hold on. If he wants to make that case, that's totally fine. If he takes the rest of this week to think about this and come back next Tuesday and tell us what our worldview is, that's what I want you to do. I want to know what my worldview is, because I don't have one, and I know what Ellen's going to say.
Well, that's what I wanted to correct, though, because you said we definitely have one, and we said on Nation. Look, what we're trying.
I want
is
him to come back and tell us what it is if he knows that we have one, because you can't say you have one if you don't know what it is.
Right, and I'm only going to say this. I'm not going to tell you what our worldview is, because I don't have one either. But I'm going to say to you, to correct you, that we're not saying your religion's wrong. So we're not taking a worldview that's saying your religion's wrong. We don't know whether it's right or wrong. We just have no good reason to think it's right, and so we haven't settled.
Well,
but you can pick up from where you are.
Definitely,
Richie. It's like you're telling me you know for a fact that I have a car, but you have never been to my house and seen in my garage. But you're telling me I have a car. So what I'm asking you to do is, if you know for a fact I have a car, I want you to come back next Tuesday and tell me what that car is, if you know what I mean.
Okay, but
because you can't tell me I have a worldview if you don't know what it is.
If I've seen you drive,
You haven't.
I don't know what car it is. You were driving fast. Maybe I don't know what that car was, but I saw you drive. So
there's a lot of sounds like there's a lot of questions about it. Like, how do you know it was me? If it went by so fast, how do you know it was a car? How do you know I was driving? Like, how do you know I own it? Like, I want you to think, really think about this. Like, I want to know what my worldview is. And if you know for a fact I have one, then you must be able to at least give me an idea of what it is. I'm not going to ask you for that tonight. I want you to think about it for a while.
But the bigger thing is, we didn't settle on something. Our claim is not your God doesn't exist and your religion's wrong. We're saying even you don't have sufficient reason to settle on your position. It's better to remain an agnostic atheist and say, until I have conclusive evidence, I have no good reason to believe. That's where we're standing. But I didn't mean to interrupt you, and it went longer than I thought. I just wanted to correct that one thing. But go ahead and get back to your final word. I'm sorry.
You even have free access to countless hours of our content that we've done on this channel, going way back for about a year. And even if you watch all of that, I know you're not gonna, but even with that as a resource, I would challenge you to come up with my worldview, because I don't even think you could, even if you watched all our content.
You may not have a name for it. It's not like a dogmatized name.
Well, you should be able to describe it in any way.
It depends on what your beliefs are, what your thoughts are on certain things. You definitely have a worldview.
You'd have to come up with that, though. You'd have to describe. If you can't describe my worldview in any way, like how I operate in the world, or how I view the world, how I view anything. I mean, a worldview, if you look it up on Google, go to Wikipedia and look up the definition of worldview. Well, worldview is a comprehensive mode of operating in the world. It is not just one thing. It's not just, hey, I don't believe in God. It is much deeper and wider than that. I mean, we have countless hours of our opinions online. You should be able to somehow get some kind of worldview from that just describe it in some way. I don't think you can. That's my challenge.
Call it Eliot's worldview and name.
Well, you can make up a name, but you can't describe it.
Can you I mean, you can't really describe anybody's worldview because really, other than just, Richie's worldview, Alan's worldview, it's like even somebody who's like the most diehard Christian, right, or the most diehard Muslim.
Then why do Christians always talk about the Christian worldview as if it's a fixed point of reference, a foundation where they get their morality from, their beliefs and morality? They have a Christian worldview. I think that they want to accuse other people of having worldviews just so that they can attack a straw man when they can't even describe what those worldviews are because they don't want to defend their own.
Okay.
So if you can find my worldview, then I'll have to defend it.
Okay.
Then the burden of proof will be on me to make a defense, not on the Christians.
No, I know what you're saying, but all right, I'll let the other callers go on.
Yeah. Well, hey, we appreciate you coming on tonight. You made for some really good content. It was
it's always a good conversation with you, Richie. I appreciate it. But
anytime, man.
Get back to me privately because I want to continue our conversation. It's a lot of fun. So let's do that. But thank you for calling in, man. It was really, really good chatting with you. And as always, it's always friendly. And have a great night. We'll catch you on the flip side, buddy.
Yeah. Same. Thanks.
All right, my friend. Peace. All right, we're going to bring Tommy here in a minute. Okay, he's already here, but let me just give some quick announcements before we move forward with this. Hang tight, Tommy, you and your beer. Oh, I'm jealous. All right, a couple things coming up. Tomorrow night, I'm having a debate with Tristan Gabriel on 21st Century Mind. The question is Tristan Gabriel an atheist? I'm taking the affirmative. He's taking the negative because he doesn't think he is, and I think he is. So this is going to be a lot of fun. Him and I are really good friends. So it's going to be a fun conversation. But I hope for anybody who is questioning whether or not they're an atheist or they've left theism, but they're not sure what they are, or you have this abhorrence toward the word atheism, all of those questions, comments, concerns, all of that's going to be covered in this debate. We're going to be hoping to define things clearly and help people understand what atheism actually is. And my goal is to help people see, and Tristan himself, to see that he's not just an agnostic, but he is, in fact, an agnostic atheist. So that's tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Eastern. You can find it on the Unraveler channel as well, and I encourage you to grab it there instead of going to 21st Century Mind, because the link is in the info below, and I could use subscribers. It'd be great to have you guys help me out and be a part of that. So that is tomorrow night. Join us. It's going to be a lot of fun. Then on Thursday, we have Critical Call with AJ and Chad. It's going to be a great conversation. You can call in if you don't like being in the video, and that's a good opportunity for you to talk to a couple people and ask you questions. So be there if you want to. That's right here on Skeptic Haven as usual. And then next Tuesday, Elliot and I are going to be back with the Deconversionists right here on Skeptic Haven with the new topic, Christian community is contrived. You see that, Elliot? So you're not surprised next week. Christian community is contrived.
I did.
So
I did look that up today. I saw it. So
I was going to say, so now you have a whole week. You have a whole week to find ways to disagree with me.
No, you bring the content. I'll review the title.
And then finally, one last thing on Sunday on the Unraveler. Oh, I'm sorry, next Wednesday on the Unraveler show, two guys, Raphael Goyko and Dustin Curley, are going to be talking about raising kids after faith. So they're going to continue the conversation we're having here, except it's going to be an hour devoted to their stories about what they did before when they were raising kids in faith and things they changed after faith. You've got to hear these stories. I'm reading their book. I just finished actually reading their upcoming book. It's called The Testimony of Two Witnesses. It's going to be a great book. You guys are going to definitely want to grab it when it comes out. So they're going to talk about that a little bit. But in there is a whole chapter on this subject. And man, was it powerful. So I'm excited to have them on to talk about it. So be on the Unraveler next Wednesday. That's not tomorrow. That's next Wednesday at 4:30 p.m. I'm going to be doing a regular show from now on the Unravelers at 4:30 p.m. on Wednesdays, as well as Sundays at 4:30 p.m. So be sure to make sure you subscribe to my channel. Link is in the comments or in the info below. Make sure you subscribe and become a part of my community. Love to have you guys check out all the stuff that I'm providing. And then, of course, my Unravelation series that comes out every Monday and Thursday, now at noon, because apparently that's when people are watching my shows, my stuff the most. So I've changed the time from 4 to 12. So it's releasing at noon And Deconversion Nation, make sure you join us on Facebook. It's a great place to continue the conversation. And make sure you check out my Patreon as well, because I have now offered a whole lot of really cool things, behind the scenes content. You get the transcripts of my episodes from Unravelation every week. And for those who join the second tier, the Unravelators and Unraveliers, the third tier, you guys get pre-released copies of my upcoming book, Unravelation, How Those of Faith Find Freedom. So make sure you check that out. It's all right there at your fingertips. Make sure you like tonight as well, if you like the content. And if you hate us, like us anyway, because if we're not here to annoy you. So make sure you like, subscribe, both here and on Skeptic Haven. Anyway, enough of all that advertising, but there's so much cool stuff going on, so I had to say it. But welcome to the show, Tommy. Welcome back, buddy.
Hey, good to see you guys. How you been?
You, man,
Not
good.
too bad, man. We're
Yeah.
always a pleasure to see you pop up in the backstage. Sorry we kept you back for so long.
Oh yeah, that's all right. That was I mean, you gave me plenty to listen to. That was a good conversation with Richard.
We've got somebody else back there right now as well who've been waiting too.
Ooh.
But
Might actually be, we might actually be able to bring Joseph in, because Tommy's one of us. So we can bring Joseph in. And you want to do that, Tommy?
Cool.
Have a four-way here?
Yeah, otherwise
I
we
know
might not have the
Yeah,
time
we won't get to Joseph. So Joseph, put your camera on.
no
We're
problem.
bringing you in. So we're going to have a four-way right now. It's going to be a great night. Joseph, pop your camera on.
Whenever he gets back to his computer, he can pop
He
on.
is a regular of ours, so we know who he is. He'll be back. And but anyway, let's pick up the conversation until he gets back.
Yeah. So man, like I said, it was cool even being just backstage listening to that conversation. Yeah, Richie, seems like a cool dude, very knowledgeable. Like I don't have too much interaction with Orthodox people, so that was just cool to listen to. But
They're gaining
so many
popularity.
thoughts. Yeah. I was actually, before completely deconverting myself, I was actually kind of flirting with like Orthodox stuff, just like, I guess, at least in like the deconstruction community, at least some like Orthodox principles are kind of trendy, or at least they were like 5 years ago or whenever it was. But yeah, fortunately, I just found myself all the way out before getting too entangled in any of that. But yeah, like I said, so many places my mind has been going, like just listening to you guys talking about yourselves. And then once Richie got on, but I think a good place to go with it is, and this also kind of ties it back to the whole like religion, Christianity's impact on parenting. When you guys were talking with Richie about the different Bible passages where, Elliot, you were saying, this sounds like it's saying beat your kid with a rod. It sounds like it's endorsing like, spanking, like at the very least, but apparently like way more than just spanking, all the way up to, stoning your disobedient child. And there was something that Richie did that I hear a lot of Christians do, and this is something I know I did as well as a Christian, so I'm not trying to like throw stones in a glass house here or anything, but it does annoy me when because like you'll notice he said, well, but what does that passage actually mean? You got to read like the full context. Did it really mean that, or could it possibly meant that? Like they only do that with the passages that sound bad. Like no Christian ever says, if you read a verse like when Jesus says, love your neighbor as yourself, they never say, well, what does that really mean though? It's like, oh yeah, obviously that's true, but it's only when it's something that sounds kind of bad. They're like, oh, well, let's, look at that. But the problem is, but my problem is, especially when it comes to passages like that, like to me, that perfectly illustrates one of the biggest problems with religion and Christianity in particular in parenting is whatever that passage does mean, it's not completely clear that it doesn't say you can beat your kids. So,
right, like it doesn't ever say you can't own a slave.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So for me, like this is something that comes up a lot in my mind when I'm listening to whether it's like apologists or just regular Christians saying things like, well, you have to know this complete historical context, all this like extra biblical context and scholarship about stuff. I'm like, one of the questions that keeps coming up in my mind, okay, like how intelligent and well-educated do I need to be to actually be a Christian the right way? Like, why can I not just read the Bible and know what God wants? And since there is all this confusion, like, because here's the thing, people are reading those passages and saying, okay, this means I can maybe not even just spank, but actually beat my child. Even if like someone like Richie is correct, and that's not what it actually means. Where is God to correct all those parents who are beating the shit out of their kids and thinking he's cool with it? Because I know if my kids were doing something in my name that was harming other people, that was contrary to what I actually told them, but they misunderstood me and were hurting other people like in my name, I would correct that shit right away.
Yeah, and I think it's important before we go to another point. I think it's important to point out to everybody that like it's very, very telling what the Bible does. What the Bible, I mean, the Bible says things that you can't do, and it says things that you should do. But it's telling what it doesn't talk about, but it doesn't prohibit. For example, the 10 Commandments say things like "Do not lie." Do not steal, do not covet, do not take the Lord's name in vain. But what they don't say, and what they don't say anywhere else in the law, is things like child molestation or sexual assault or animal cruelty or denying you ownership of slaves. Like there's so many terrible things that we recognize are immoral today that the Bible left out. It didn't address them at all. It didn't tell you not to do them. So what are you supposed to think?
Right.
You can't make a biblical case that you shouldn't do them, is what I'm saying.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's the problem when like religion comes into, especially if you're going to be more fundamentalist about it, because the people say, well, if the Bible doesn't say anything about it, we can't say anything for sure. So like their entire worldview, you bring that fun word back, is based on what the Bible says. So if it's it's basically, so speaking of just from my own experience being a parent since leaving Christianity, it's been so much more freeing. Because like I don't have to worry about like what the Bible does or doesn't say about certain things. I can just look to just my own experience with my own kids, like what actually works with them. And if it's something I have questions about, I can look at like things like modern psychology and science and like parenting tips and things like that, and just say, what are people doing now? What are people actually figuring out? What has been shown to be effective? But again, the main thing, just what actually works with my kids, getting to actually know them and letting them get to know me. And I like what you said there about like growing with culture. Like as we're learning new things, we're developing better skills at parenting, and it's really cool because my wife shares stuff with me all the time, things that 10 years ago we would have done differently. Now we're learning more and more about the psyche because science advances, and so we have better ways to do things. Depending on a 2,000-year-old book for the best advice on how to raise kids, that's absurd to me. Yeah, absolutely absurd. Or even how to treat your spouse, for that matter. And not to mention the book itself is a patriarchal book. The man rules the roost. And he's always, and it's amazing to me how much my mind has been freed from that mentality. And you don't have to live like that. Like Christians only think that way frequently. Like there are some Christians that have broken free of that, but predominantly, if you're a Christian, you have a patriarchal mindset because that's what the Bible teaches. And so that's kind of the way you live. The man is the head of the home. And so like. I've had people ask me, they're like, at home, who's in charge? I'm like, nobody's in charge. What do you mean? What does that mean? You don't have to have somebody that's in charge. Like, what is that? Yeah. Like, but you can't think any differently. It's like you just have that mindset that somebody has to always rule. And it's so many things we've learned how to be better without the Bible. The Bible definitely keeps us from evolving. Exactly.
By the way, guys, Joseph is back with us. He has requested to keep his camera off tonight for personal reasons. We know him. He's been with us plenty of times, so I'm not worried about him. So we're fine with that. So Joseph, if you want to join the conversation,
jump on in.
Hey, how's it going? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. You're good.
Okay, so it sounds like we got 3 atheists, or as Alan put it, and I've never heard this term before, atheist agnostic?
An agnostic atheist, yeah. Agnosticism speaks to knowledge, and atheism speaks to belief. Sorry, Tommy, go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. I interrupted you. I was just going to say, to further clarify myself, I actually consider myself an agnostic atheist. But if no one knows what that means, don't worry about it. Agnostic atheist works.
Okay.
Well, you let the cat out of the bag now. Why don't you go ahead and tell us what's an agnostic atheist?
Okay. Well, it's basically agnostic, or some people even just say igtheist or igtheism. It's basically just the idea is I don't even have a coherent, like singular version of God to accept or reject. So it's almost like the question of whether or not you accept a God or not is almost irrelevant because I don't even have a definition of one to accept or reject. So it's just kind of meaningless, I guess.
Right.
Isn't that similar to being an agnostic atheist?
Oh yeah, very similar, but I guess maybe just a little more specified. It's not just that, well, I don't know. To me, it's like just going a little step further is like I've heard so many ideas that I don't know if it even necessarily goes to the step of kind of extending it out to everyone else in the world, saying like no one actually knows. So maybe it gets a little dangerously close to that. If not, I also admit it's a term I've only recently become familiar with, so I may be butchering it. So if there are any other theists out there want to correct me.
I guess
But
I
yeah.
would rephrase and say it's like somebody proposes that there's a new animal species out there that we haven't found yet, but because you don't have a good description of it and can't describe it in any way, you're like, well, I don't even know what it is. Like, how could I believe it's even out there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, if it's like if I
So would you say
never
you're
seen
so as an agnostic atheist, you would also be an agnostic then, right?
Yeah, I think so. Atheism may be you might consider it a subset of agnostics, but yeah. So I would also say I don't know if there's a God or not. But honestly, like if we're going to just just my personal feelings, like on most days, if I'm completely honest, I probably would call myself a strong atheist. Like I am very comfortable saying there are no gods. You know, like I said, I don't necessarily claim to know that. And even if someone says, well, that means I have the burden of proof. Well, I mean, I really only have the burden of proof in so far as I really care about convincing other people, which I don't. So, but if I'm dishonest, I would say I really think there are no gods. So just all that to say, that's where I'm at for people who don't know me.
So you lean closer to atheist views than you do agnostic, but you're not a hardcore atheist. You're just kind of like 80%
Well, that depends what you mean by.
atheist.
Well, it depends what you mean by hardcore atheist, I guess. But
someone who's I would think of like a Richard Dawkins, someone who's dogmatic, someone who would hardcore, someone who goes out of their way to intentionally try to evangelize in their own way that there is no God. Like I have to tell you and prove to you that there isn't a God.
No, I mean, I'm not to that. I'm not to that point. Now, I have definitely been accused of being an atheist evangelist because yes, I am very like outspoken about my views and why I don't believe and why I find specifically Christianity, just because that's what I grew up in, but really like all forms of theism or even beliefs in the supernatural, because I also consider myself a naturalist in that sense. But I mean, this is like all people. I don't know why people use like evangelist about whatever your beliefs are as a pejorative, because I mean, most people do that if there's something they like believe in or think is a good thing or if you have positive feelings about, like, of course, like we tell people about it. It's because like from my perspective, people say, well, why are you so vocal about it? Well, part of it is just because of how much my life has improved since leaving Christianity, since leaving theism, since leaving any belief in a supernatural. So I put it out there, say, okay, here's how it's been good for me. Now, obviously, I'm not to the point where I'm like, banging on people's doors and like forcing conversions or anything. But I am very vocal just to put it out there. It's like, hey, if this sounds good to anybody else, here's what I think. You can agree with me or disagree with me, whatever. But yes, I'm just very vocal about it. But
I always wonder sometimes, like if I were an atheist, and for I wouldn't say I was an atheist, but for a long period of time, I was a very strong disbeliever in God. I never personally went out of my way to persuade anyone otherwise of their belief in God because I didn't care enough about God to speak about it. So me thinking I'm atheist. I'm not saying I would never have an opinion about it, but I certainly wouldn't go to the length of, I've seen many atheists, at least in this kind of realm, podcasting, YouTube, or social media, or someone as extreme as Richard Dawkins, they make it their career. It is something that it's like about gods, about something that doesn't exist. They're talking about it doesn't exist. To me, you're atheist. So Joseph, what is there to talk about?
Joseph, you were a I guess you were a apatheist. You're someone who just didn't care.
Yeah, but also I
was apathetic.
Yeah, because also I take issue with this accusation. This is something else atheists hear a lot. Is like, well, if you don't believe in God, why do you talk about him if you don't think there's anything real? Because what I do think is real is the harm that is done by people who do believe in God. It's like no one. Joseph, are you familiar with a guy called Ken Ham? Who's a Christian?
Oh yeah, he built the metaphor, the ark somewhere down
Yes.
south.
So he's always out there, you could say, evangelizing against evolution. So, I mean, but no one ever asked Ken Ham, why do you talk about evolution so much if you don't believe in it? If you don't think it's real, what's the point? Well, I have personally plenty of reasons, like I think he should shut up about it, but that's beside the point. But the reason he does is because he sees, even though he doesn't think that evolution is something that is actually real, he sees the belief in it as something harmful. And that's what he's out there preaching it. So for me, like I said, when I've seen the benefits of leaving belief in God, and specifically here in America, you know, where what Christian nationalism has done, like that's really more what I specifically speak out against. Like, because like people just believing, have a faith, and if it's like it's just good for them, you know, they just want to love God and love other people like that, I don't really have a problem with. If people still want to have a conversation with me, like why I still don't believe that's necessarily correct, whatever. Because I mean, another thing I talk about is like I have 2 kids, they're both Christian, but because they're not like that kind of Christian, like I don't care. I let them believe whatever they want.
Let's talk about the bare minimum barrier of entry for harm, though. Now, I imagine we'd all agree that it's normal for small children to have like fantasy worlds and invisible friends. But if you had adults walking around talking about invisible beings and talking to invisible friends and just that bare minimum of belief, and it was outside of the God context, like you would think this person is mentally unwell and needs help. But just because you add the God to it, let's say God doesn't exist, you still have a grown-ass adult walking around engaging in conversations and fantasy worlds about invisible beings that do not exist. Like, how does this not meet the definition of a mental illness if there is no God? Yeah. So even if these people aren't actively doing harm, like in the community, by pushing their beliefs, harmful beliefs on other people, and they're just like all they have is the belief in God. Even that is like the bare minimum entry of this is not good, this is not healthy, right? If it's not true, like.
And I will say just quick on the whole like calling it mental illness thing. This is something I have heard from people like more like mental health professionals, even those who are atheists. The reason that just being religious, even like if there is no God, like we believe, still just the fact that people are doing, like you said, talking to like an invisible man, what separates that and makes it not mental illness is because they're part of a culture where that is generally accepted. Like usually when we classify someone as having like an actual legit mental illness is when like they're seeing something, but literally no one else is seeing it. Like it's not like their whole community is seeing an invisible person. But yeah, so I just want to make that distinction.
I want to be absolutely clear. I am not calling Christianity or religion a mental illness. What I'm saying is that outside, if they did the exact same things and believed the exact same things, but it was outside of the religious context, we would all agree this is bad. Simply adding God onto it is like, okay, well, why does that make it more healthy? So that's why I say that the mere belief itself is like the barrier of entry to get into the harm aspect. Like just because they all group up together and agree that crazy shit is real doesn't mean it's any less harmful than it would be outside of that context.
So interesting. So I my video from Unravelation that I posted yesterday. I got a comment from William Vincent. He's a guy I debated once before. He made this comment. I'm curious what your guys' thoughts on it. He said, as a person who has raised children and is presently raising them, I find this sort of clickbait disgusting, which I don't even know why I said that, because clickbait's when you post something that's not what the video is about, which that's not the case here. But anyway, forgetting that point, he said, I see my children and their friends as they live close lives in a community of faith. To strip this from children and leave them with nihilistic nonsense is child abuse. If you want to slowly toss your life into the void of meaninglessness, then do so, but leave our children alone.
Leave our children alone. They should take that advice.
Right? Yeah, because no child has ever grown up happily not having faith. Apparently. Like, yeah, it bothers me that they're treating faith as the default. And yeah,
it sounds like the argument is nihilism is the only option outside of Christianity, And without community of faith, you can't have, a happy life. You can't be healthy. You can't live well. Anyway, but the whole child abuse comment, that really blew me away, because I was like, I personally think what Christianity does is child abuse.
Well,
or
that was just like,
or it's at least closer. Yeah.
Why do they think that they have a right to indoctrinate their own children? It's like they think they own a human being and they can do whatever they want with it simply because it exists and it came out of their body. So now they can indoctrinate, they can fill a child's head with bullshit. How is that not child abuse? I want them to account for that.
Well, I agree, and we have
your child, so you can do whatever you want with it.
Yeah, we happen to have
because if they indoctrinated it into Buddhism, they'd see that as child abuse.
Oh, I agree with you 100%, but we happen to have a Christian here, so maybe Yosef, you can help us out with this. I'm curious as well.
Yeah, and real quick, hey BS, see him in the chat there. So just wanted to say hi.
So I was raised Jewish for almost 13 years of my life. So that's all I knew. And then that's when I went into my, as Alan called it, what you call it, my disbelieving phase. I forgot the word you used, start with an A.
The apatheism.
Yeah. Apathet, yes.
I don't know. I made it up. Apatheism, I guess.
No, I think that actually might be a real term, actually.
Oh, is it an apatheist? I think you might be right. Yeah, people who just don't care.
It makes sense.
I'm apathetic.
But I didn't hate God, but I wasn't like, I just kind of felt like I'm not a Jew, So anyways, and then I came into Christianity 10 years after the fact, somewhere in my mid-20s. So to his statement about him feeling that you guys are preaching nihilistic beliefs upon children, innocent children, I guess in a sense, insinuating that you're stealing their innocence, stealing that whatever nature is from God. I don't think anyone can steal anything from anybody. However, children are impressionable, and the role of a parent is to teach a child the best way that parent knows how to raise that child. I wouldn't personally allow my child to just willy-nilly believe any old thing, just for the same reason you wouldn't allow your child to watch anything on TV at a young age, because you're playing Grand Theft Auto. Yeah, it's fun and games to us. We're adults. We know that violence isn't real, but there have been kids who have grown up, and we've had Columbines and certain situations where people were inspired by violence in movies and things like that because they were exposed to it at too young an age. So, but it is every parent's job to the best that they can raise that child up to values and beliefs and moral systems that they believe is right, whether you believe is right or wrong. So, but I don't think that your intention as atheists, when you're trying to reach out to the young ones, is a nefarious approach. It's not. I don't see it as an evil. Oh, they're trying to sully our children. They're trying to soil them. They're trying to destroy their minds. I don't see it that way. But I can understand from someone who is a Christian, I'm assuming like that man would see it that way. And he would see it as an attack upon the children. What about the children? What about the children? But sometimes you can raise those children up to be exactly the way you think they should be, as you are, and they can turn out to be the total opposite. They can turn out to be the atheists. They could be the worst fears. They could turn out to be, God forbid, gay. Oh, I'm raising them up to be straight, and they're gonna, this is my son, and he likes girls, and then you find out, actually, I don't like girls. Like, whoa. So it's a lot of fear involved in that statement that he made. That,
so Yosef, real quick.
Go ahead.
Like, I think it's important to clarify that we're not advocating for, I don't think any atheist is advocating for raising a child as an atheist. We're simply taking a neutral position of, we don't think that children should be indoctrinated into anything. They should be allowed to choose once they reach the age of accountability or reason, or, a threshold where they can decide for themselves. So we're not trying to lead children away from God. We're simply trying to prevent a different ideology from being imposed on them against their will. So we're trying to give the children, or we're advocating, we can't do anything ourselves, but we're advocating for children to be allowed freedom from any ideology.
Yeah. Basically,
so
just critical thinking. Exactly. That's a huge part, because, but yeah, basically, like we said before, just not seeding Christianity or any other religion as the default. Because like I said, like I have 2 kids, like I'm atheist, they're both Christian. Like I said, I don't try to talk them out of anything. Like now I love that they are comfortable having discussions with me about like what I think. I ask them what they think, and we just have our discussions and we come away with it thinking what we think, and that's fine. And I love that about it. But yeah, also I take slight issue with in this comment or whatever, assuming that nihilism is necessarily bad, but that's a whole other.
No, and it may not be. That to me was such a side comments that he made. I was more interested in the child abuse comment, and how that relates to nihilism. Yeah, that was weird. Because I mean, the reality is what truth is truth, and I can't see how it's abusive when you just let somebody determine what truth is. Like, if it's nihilism, it's nihilism. If it's a god, it's a god. If it's a nihilism, it's a nihilism. If it's eternal life, truth is what's important. So how is it child abuse to help somebody discover truth? I don't get that.
Yeah,
rather than, as you said, seeding them with a belief system, because that's what he's advocating for. Like let's make sure we keep teaching them Jesus. And I'm like, how about we stop teaching them anything about what to believe and just help them think critically so that they can determine. Because if we keep seeding them with belief systems that we already hold on to, we're preventing future generations from developing and growing and evolving and helping us become a better species. Part of our evolution depends on critical thinking and not teaching people what to think. Like one of the greatest things about being a child is imagination, and it's amazing how much we want to suppress that by telling them what to think. Elliot, you were trying to say something.
Well, you have to go out of your way to be very careful to not let tribalism get in the way of your thinking. And I think most people think that it's child abuse to lead a child in any other direction than their own. Like if I'm a parent and I'm a Muslim, Buddhist, Christian, Catholic, it doesn't matter what it is. If that child is allowed to go in any other direction, like I'm going to automatically see that as child abuse because I believe I am correct. And if you believe you have the truth, anything but the truth is abuse. So you have to work really, really hard to avoid that. Even as an atheist, like I would have trouble, I guess, if I had children, like resisting the urge to tell them this is bullshit. There is no God. It just to allow them to just go their own way. Like that takes some self-control.
No, but see, I don't think there's any problem with presenting arguments and having critical thinking conversations with your child, whether they are an atheist or a theist. Like, I think it's important to go about it in both directions. Like what your child is thinking about any particular subject, you present the alternative, you play devil's advocate, you teach them how to think. Like I think it's important that they learn how to determine whether or not what they think is true, whether or not what they think is true. Like it's the how that's so important. So I don't have any problem. Like I have debates with my stepdaughter all the time. Because it's fun. And we have a great time having conversations. And a lot of times they're just about stupid things, but who cares? Like she's intelligent. She's learning how to think. And half the time she's teaching me how to think, to be honest. But yeah, I think there's nothing wrong with her. She's 15.
Oh, okay. Yeah. She's okay. I don't know. That's fine. When they get to that age where you can have that, I never thought of it. How's a 15-year-old 16-some-year-old teaching me something as they should sometimes, because we as mature as we think we are, we can have a lot of wisdom, experience, and knowledge, but they can come from a perspective that throws us for a loop and it's like, you got me on that one. I got to think about that. Because they don't have all that experience and knowledge that they have gathered up that would cloud their minds from a different perspective that we may not have even considered.
Yeah.
So it is important to raise up our child to have a more balanced viewpoint, as Elliot stated. But as Elliot also stated, it is very difficult to consistently do that. I can see moments where people say, you know what, I accept you for the way you are. Listen, I've seen that, amongst some Christian parents. I would love you regardless of how you turn. And then this is an extreme example, but the child comes out the closet. Oh, yeah, well, I didn't know you was going to. When I said I loved you the way you are, I didn't know it was going to be like that, right? So same thing with someone who's been raised a Christian, they turn out to be atheists. oh, see, now they're being challenged, right? Their own personal faith is being challenged, but their own beliefs are being challenged because now they're seeing, I guess, the reflection of themselves back at them. So how you treat that person there going forward will be a reflection of yourself. And if you really do believe in the God you say you do, you would treat that atheist, that homosexual child that you was thinking in your mind is impossible. That woman, Alan, you brought this up earlier about how the female gender is discriminated against because of the patriarchal book and how that's true. How a woman might become more empowered and how you feel about that personally. There's a lot of things that would challenge a Christian's faith, the faith that they say that they have. If, let's say, God put into place a curveball in their program, a curveball in their belief. Now, do you still believe in God? Do you still love that child? Do you still love that person the way you say you do when it's coming face to face against you and your beliefs?
You know, Yosef, every week that we have you on the show, it amazes me more and more that you're actually a Christian.
Right.
I just don't like the stuff you say, dude. I'm just like,
man. Join us.
yes, seriously, dude. Like, I'm just like, wow. Maybe if we could just get all the Christians in the world be like you, we would be fine. I don't know.
You know, there's a lot of people out there that I'm really disappointed that they're Christians because they would make such a powerful force for our side.
Yeah.
If they would just see the light and join us.
I agree. Yeah, Yosef's one of them.
Briefly,
Josh
the
Patterson.
reason
I
why
can think
I
of a
won't
few.
go that far, I can just tell you briefly why I wouldn't take it as far as you guys have taken from, you can say I'm at the edge, but I just haven't jumped over yet. But I can tell you why I haven't made that leap over. It's because for me, there's been enough evidence that God is legitimate, and it's not even just based on my personal experiences, but just based on science and the laws of the universe and such, that when I study things from a rational, like my brain mind, and then when I then go from my brain mind to my heart mind, it's like, okay, God does exist. He may not exist in the form that the Bible says he does, which is not a very nice God to believe in, but he does exist. So there's a mistranslation someplace, and I can't fault God for that mistranslation. I would have to fault us, man, human beings, for that because of our fallen nature. That's all. I mean, that's my conclusion. So
Well,
that's
that makes
the
sense.
only thing that's kept me from making that leap.
But
I get it. I think
Michael-
the main thing that's keeping you from going over the edge is that you haven't called enough of our shows early enough so we could actually have a long conversation with
Right,
you.
yeah.
So
Yeah,
you
because
keep calling these last minutes, so we only have like 20, 30 minutes with you. It's not enough time.
Yeah, because my question would be, so you say, well, it's a mistranslation. That's not God's fault that people mistranslate a thing. But I would say it's God's fault for not correcting it if people are mistranslating it. So what do you think of that?
If we have free will, then he can't, I'm sure, shoot.
Well, that doesn't violate free will to just correct an error. Like I correct errors in my children all the time. I'm not violating their free will. I'm just telling you, here's where you're wrong on a thing. Let me give you the correct information. I mean, that's what schools do all the time. Like we say, like I would be saying schools are violating students' free will by just giving them correct information. That's really all I'm asking for.
I agree. And the correction comes not in the form of other people. It can, other people telling you, okay, this is off. It's more of a heart check. It's things that I've done, beliefs that I felt, ideas that I held that was so wrong that no human being could have told me any differently. But there was something that would, as scripture would say, pricks your heart. Like, and to a degree where it's like, but I believe this, but this thing that I'm feeling is the total opposite of what I strongly believe is to be true. But now I'm having to face that heart check is, oh, so this might not be true. And then it goes into me doing a little bit more research, a little bit more prayer, going directly to the source as Jesus himself would have everyone to do. But everyone still wants the middleman for some reason. But I go straight to the source. And I rely on that source, as you say, faith, to help me make sense of things that I can't, in my finite human brain can't comprehend certain things because it's so much information, so much knowledge. But I know if God is the all-knowing one, then I can always rely on him to give me the truth. And lean on that more so than what anyone could put in the book, whether it be the Bible, the Quran, or whatever religious text that people use. So that's why I don't make that leap, because I I can side with you guys and have these conversations with you guys very easily, but I can also have just as easy a conversation with the Christian, with the Buddhist, with the Muslim, is because if I'm to believe that Jesus is who he is, he will want to bridge the gap across all people, across all nations, ethnicities, beliefs, and cultures. Not just, oh, you're Christian, you're Jewish, therefore you're my people. I would imagine Jesus being that, and also God himself being that. If we're all created as human beings, we just have a different color and hue, different minds and beliefs, then it makes logical sense that it would make more sense for me to be in alignment with being able to reach everybody equally and not just parsing out who I want to favor more than the others. Yeah, it's easier for me to hang out with the Christian than it is the atheist, or with a Christian than it is the Muslim. But it's much more challenging for me to go to people who have a different idea, who teach me something about God that I might not even know, that you might not even know. Oh, you're speaking about things like, oh, wow. And God was sitting and be like, that person was right. Like, but that person's an atheist. He's like, but they're right about me. And that's the way you should actually think. I'm like, wow. So the Christians I was talking to who's supposed to know God, they know less than someone who's an atheist like an Alan or Elliot or Tommy. That shocks me. Or a gay person. Like, no, how could they know anything about God? Because they're against you, right? No. See, that's the heart check. That's the part that the Bible can't teach you. The only thing that the Bible can give me is it's sort of like a baseline, right? But a lot of people take it as gospel, no pun intended. I just go to God directly, and he kind of cross-examines things for me in between me listening to you guys, going to other people, and it just is a beautiful combination where he uses people, but he also says, but I am the source, right? Don't rely on people, but you can go to people because that's what we are here for. We're social creatures. We're supposed to, bounce ideas off each other. Cool. But then at the end of the day, it's him up there. It's me, my voice you should listen to above all, not what you think my voice is in the Bible or what you think my voice is in other people. That's it.
I was gonna say, like Joseph, like you sound like a cool dude. I'm glad to finally get to talk with you. But so if there is a God and if there is a Jesus, I hope you're right about them and that's actually how they are. I just wish that this God and Jesus would correct all the people who have such completely different and wrong and harmful views about him. Like, to me, that's my real hang up. It's like, even if there was this all-loving, who is this all-inclusive God who does just want to love everyone and have all these different types of people, like, I wish he would actually like show up and let me know that, or at least, like I said, let the people know who are getting such wrong ideas about him to harmful effect. I wish he would show up and correct them. That's what I would like to see.
Yeah, the fact that this God won't show up and fix all this kind of proves that maybe, Joseph, your version of God isn't true. Because if you see him as this all-loving character that you can go to with your problems and you can have these connections, but he doesn't care enough to actually, not just not fix the world with its incalculable amounts of suffering, but he won't even just show up so that I can know that he's there so that I can follow him. I mean, that's kind of contradicts your version of him a little bit, doesn't it?
I mean, in a way, I to what Elliot's saying, like, I would love for you to tell us how you distinguish between what the voice of God sounds like when he's talking to you and what another voice that isn't God sounds like, so that we can know when I hear God, because maybe I'm hearing God and I have no idea. Like, how do you know what God sounds like?
Oh, these questions are so freaking good. Because these questions that if I'm talking to God, I'm, assuming I'm praying, I'm thinking, okay, how do I know it's you? And then he'll give me a sign that's so personal, unique to me that it's like, okay, that was you. But then you would say, well, how would you know it is God? It's not another spirit. Let's say some people believe in the devil, demons, whatever. How do you know it's a different kind of spirit and it's not a loving spirit, but it's an evil spirit? Those things do exist. And making that differentiation takes getting closer to God. So that earnest desire to want to get closer. Go ahead.
My wife's one of the students that she works with, she's a RBT, registered behavior technician, and one of the parents of a child she works with made us some meatballs and a pasta salad today. That was a very unique situation. Was that God? It was unique to me.
Well, not if it's wait. So you had someone just make you a plate of food and you enjoyed it,
But
or
this specific plate of food, she's never made this before. Nobody's ever made this specific plate of food for me before. So it was a very unique situation for me. Was that God? Was he telling me something? Because I got something unique that was nobody else experienced. You guys didn't experience it. It was just me.
I would say it would be.
How do I know if that's God or not?
I think of it like the story of Gideon, where he's like flipping over. He's like, if it's really you, then it'll be like something like the dew underneath something, and this is an impossible thing. But if it's you, then I'll know it's you. And I think he did it like 2 or 3 times. It's like, okay, it's you. That way he knew going forward how to move. So it's not going to be something like a Gideon could describe to you. Oh, this is he'll know for himself. Like you'll know for you. So for me, for example, that plate of spaghetti and meatballs, it has no significance to me. But maybe you was praying about something. Maybe you had a childhood thing. I had this, and you was praying one day, and then you saw something, and you made that connection. It'll be almost instantaneously. It'll be like sort of like, oh, but you wouldn't be able to describe to someone else as this is how I knew God is, real. They'll probably look at you like you're a little bit off your whacker. But
well, I mean, this was not regular. This was cold pasta and meatballs. Extremely unique. I've never had anybody do that. That's just not common, man. Nobody does that. And I think, and it was good. I've had 2 helpings and actually ate it all and didn't save any for my wife. Was that God telling me something? Like it was so unique to me, man.
Well, let me reel it back in a little bit to more like what Joseph was talking about, because you're being satirical. Well done, but Joseph, when I was a Christian at the peak of my experience, like I had the exact sort of confirmations that you did in miraculous ways that I could absolutely not, even today, figure out how they happened. They were unique to me, just like yours. But now, fast forward to today, I'm an atheist. Those experiences did not protect my faith. And I'll tell you why. 2 reasons. The first one was I stopped having those experiences. God stopped reaching out to me with those answers to prayer and those signs, even though I had not stopped believing, did not stop having faith, and did not stop asking for those signs. They stopped on their own. Then I learned about the law of averages and how eventually everything averages out. Like you might see signs for a while, and then you won't see signs. Like this is a natural phenomenon. Like over time, the ups and the downs just kind of level out to a plateau, and you can sort of predict you're going to have up days, you're going to have down days. You're going to have things that look unique, you're going to have things that don't look unique. And then I learned about fallacies like the Texas sharpshooter fallacy, where I only remember or recognize the ones that look like signs, and I don't notice the times that the signs didn't happen. So then later on, when I learned about all of the problems with Christianity that were so tremendous that I could not ignore them, to the point where it didn't matter what kind of experience I had to follow the rational part of my brain that told me that this shit was all in my head, all of it. And when that happened to me and I left Christianity, where was God? Where was God to reel me back? Where was God to appear to me then when I needed him the most? When I needed a sign from him the most? Because I was on the verge of becoming an apostate and abandoning God completely. Like, where was he then when I needed him the most?
Well, if you're on the verge of something like that, and you said you required miracles in the same way that forgot that one disciple that didn't believe Jesus was really risen until he could physically see him. Now I believe.
That's my man. That's my man Thomas. Yeah, he's my favorite.
Thomas got what he needed. Thomas got what he needed. Every biblical character got what they needed when they needed it.
Probably.
I never did. Ellen never did. Tommy never did. We didn't get what we needed when we needed it, but every biblical character did. Why the double standard?
Not every, because only those disciples who was in their room had the physical evidence that God supposedly, or they call him God, Jesus rose from the dead, and I'm real. Actually, everything. See, I told you. See, ta-da. No, they're like, okay. Then they went out based on that.
Joseph, it's not. Forget the apostles. I'm talking about every biblical character going backwards all the way to the beginning, got what they needed. Adam walked with God. Abraham talked with God. These characters saw God in dreams. God came down. Moses saw God face to face. Like every one of these guys.
Yeah,
God,
and you mentioned Gideon and his tests. Like God performed the tests and gave him the proof. Yeah.
Because I mean, you look at Joseph's story, right? He was in prison for what, almost damn near a decade. So you could say, well, God, you abandoned me. And I would imagine if I was him, yeah, you did. But yet, and through all that, he still believed that one dream he had, that he was going to be somebody. I'm going to be somebody. But yet, it's so weird how I'm in this jail cell. God, where are you at? But everything had to happen for that. He had to be in that position, perhaps to learn a lot of different things that, of course, he wouldn't have voluntarily put himself in that position. But if he truly had the faith and love that he had for God, he would trust him even through the hard times, because the faith in God does not guarantee good times all the time.
Joseph, when I was going through my experience, I identified with that character, Joseph, and I felt like I was in prison waiting for God to finally come back and come through for me. But the difference is he finally came through for Joseph, never came through for me.
Yeah, and speaking of, like something that came to mind when you're talking about Gideon, who was like asking God for signs, and like you said, like Joseph, in prayer, you recommended just like asking God for a sign and how will come through for you. That's honestly like when I have kind of consider like my official day of like becoming an atheist, which will be 5 years this October. It was actually during a prayer exercise that I was doing through a men's small group I was in the time, where not only did I ask God for a sign and I didn't get it, I actually got a sign disconfirming God and affirming that it was really just me and my own thoughts the whole time. I mean, I don't know how long like Alan and Elliot want to go for me to get into the details, but suffice to say, like during that prayer time, I like I said, didn't get the sign, got a disconfirming sign.
When my story, I think if you remember, I was literally on a prayer run, and I was mid-prayer talking to God and completely lost my faith in that moment. Why would God take away my faith in the middle of a prayer to him in my most darkest hours when I was begging him to reveal himself to me?
Are you real quick, Alan? Are you familiar with the Black Pentecostal preacher Bishop Carton? He was under Orville, and
I think I know who you're talking about, but I'm not really familiar with him now.
Well, he was the most famous. He basically made a lot of the word of faith preachers that we have today, from the Joel Osteens to the TD Jakes, Joyce Myers, all the ones that's major mainstream. He's pretty much he laid the foundation for that under Orville. Roberts, he considered this Black preacher to be a student because he had the charisma and everything. So anyways, this preacher, Bishop Carton, he did the same thing you did, right? And he came to the same revelation that you did, that everything you know about, or you think you know about me, is what he got from God. Everything you think you know about me was a lie. And so this threw him for a loop. So he said, okay, wait, but I know I'm not talking to myself. I can identify it as you. So why are you then taking away the very thing that I believe to be true, which is my faith in just my everything that I know to be Christian, everything I know to be you, you're saying is BS? He said, well, and then he did about face. He had to teach him things. He had to continue to listen to him about why he took away his faith in the things that he thought was God, and say, well, this is actually me. He, in a sense, was deconstructing his identity and saying, now follow me, as opposed to following man, following scripture, following all these other things that people believe and say that is me. Listen to me instead. And if you listen to me, it's going to be contradictory.
So I got a question there.
All
right. So it sounds to me like you're saying, because this is sort of answering the question I had earlier. How do you distinguish between when it's God talking to you and when it's not? And it sounds like you're saying, well, when you choose to just believe it, then that's God talking to you. And if you turn away, that's not God talking to you. So ultimately, the only time that you can be correct is when you finally conclude that God is real and you just believe in him. So, I mean, it sounds to me like you're just making a case. It just sounds to me like you're just making a case that you are always you have to at some point settle on a belief in God, because that's the only way that's right. And there's no way to actually distinguish God, whether it's his voice or not, other than when I've concluded he's real. Like you're already drawing a conclusion and saying that that's the only way to live, and if you're not doing that, then he's, no matter what, like if I fall away and if I become an atheist, well, maybe God's just trying to bring you back to him, or maybe God's just teaching you a lesson, or God's just building character, but God's always doing something. So if you come to God, that's God. If you turn away from God, that's God. God's getting the credit no matter what happens. So there's never a moment in which you can stand back in your position and say, maybe God just doesn't exist. In your mind, God always exists, and no matter what, he's always doing something. So there's nothing that can ever happen in life that you're not going to find some way to say, well, that was God.
Yeah.
So you've already concluded that God's there.
Yeah. So
pause for a second, everybody. I just want to make this clear. We've got somebody in the chat who's asking how to join, and we've got somebody in the back room ready to come on stage. We are about out of time tonight, guys. So anybody who wants to join the show is going to have to wait till next Tuesday. I don't want to waste anybody's time trying to join when we just are running out of time tonight. So go ahead.
But don't forget, you can call back on Thursday night if you want to Critical Call with AJ and talk there. So otherwise, join us next Tuesday. We'd love to have you back.
Yeah. So to piggyback on what Alan is saying there, the big word that keeps coming up for me when it came to like leaving the faith and considering was the term falsifiability. Like what? So Joseph, I guess for me, what would it look like for you if there was no God? Like what would have to happen for you to actually conclude, okay, maybe there is no God?
Oh, that's a great question.
Oh, thank you.
Because I always hear the opposite. So I would have to look at, my surrounding environments and say, okay, there is no God. And I'm looking around me with my physical senses, all 5 of them. And I'm saying, okay, I'm floating now. So the law of gravity isn't consistent. And then I'm looking at other laws of the universe, other laws of physics that exist. And I say, okay, this is, it's thermodynamics. It's not, we're flying the plane. It's the right formula, but the planes are going down now. And then I'm looking at.
Well, this is all assuming that God is necessary for the laws of physics to be constant, but we don't necessarily know that that's true, though.
Well, if I make a law I know you've heard that argument 1,000 times. So I won't belabor it. It's a silly point to make because you guys are very intelligent. But it's impossible for me to have something that precise and there not be something behind it that created that precision. It's like me building a house, a structure, and saying, "Oh, it just created itself out of osmosis." There's no way of proving that the house was built by a builder. But logically speaking, there has to.
Well, it's not the same because we've seen houses being built, but yeah.
Without any sort of intervention from an intelligent behind the scenes, whether it's AI or whatever, there has to be something behind something to build the intelligence of a house. It has to be something behind that precision.
Joseph, that's a massive assumption because you don't have the God to show, you just have the product. So you are guessing that there is a creator without knowing that there is. You're making a tremendous leap.
Yeah,
if you can show God, then we'll have something to talk about. But if you just have the product, you have no idea where it came from.
Yeah,
but let's just even for the sake of argument say that you're and by no means am I granting this permanently, just for this comment I am. Let's just say for the sake of argument that there has to be some sort of designer, as you're arguing for. Bro, like it's an amazing amount of illogical leaps you have to take to get to a supreme God that has intelligence and will and all this. Like, there's no way you can possibly know it's anything more than something natural that has always existed.
Mm-hmm.
Something natural to me is pretty extraordinary for something as simple as things we take for granted. Like I said, quantum mechanics, gravity, theory of relativity, thermodynamics, aerodynamics.
How do you know it's extraordinary? It might be completely ordinary. How do you know?
And it's just to our minds, it seems
this could be totally normal. It could be totally normal for things to exist without creators. We have no idea unless you're outside of the cosmos completely and have some sort of godlike vision to even know that it's extraordinary.
Joseph, do you know have you ever existed before time and space began?
Well,
It's a stupid question because the answer has to be no, right? So the question is,
I know I existed. I just don't know. I know I wasn't aware of my existence. So it was an unconscious existence before my incarnation.
That's fine.
Your incarnation.
We'll go with that. Either way, if you answer that way, that's fine. But you were unconscious. You had no idea then what the laws of physics, if there were any, were like prior to time and space to you.
True. I had no idea.
So if you don't, then how can you possibly know that it had to be some extraordinary supernatural thing? You can't possibly know that because the laws of physics could have been entirely different than they are now if there were even any laws of physics. And so it could have been anything that began this universe. And it could have been completely an ordinary, natural thing. We just can't possibly. It could have literally been my cat. You just don't know because we don't know what life was like before this.
Right. I mean, you're right. All we have is what's in front of us. We can only see what's in front of us and somewhat.
Exactly. So you're making a
gigantic
gigantic assumption about a God and basing your whole life on this.
Yeah, this is why we shouldn't use intelligent design as an argument either way. It should just be abandoned, and you should find better reasons.
Yeah, but to bring it back to like my original question about falsifiability, like I mean, I love where this is going, but I think maybe just like a simpler example, you were talking about when you say you have these experiences of going directly to God and feeling like you're communicating with him, and then other people like me or Elliot or Alan say, well, we don't have those experiences. So you're saying, well, look at stories like Joseph. So maybe like falsify this situation for me. You're saying like when you go to God, you get that immediate connection, and therefore that's proof. But when we say we go to God and we don't get that connection, that's not disproved to you. It's like, oh, well, maybe that just means you need to wait. So falsify this situation. Like, am I making sense here? Like why is it when you get that immediate answer, that's proof, but when you don't get the immediate answer, that's not disproof? Like, what would falsify this situation for me?
Well, for starters, I wouldn't insult anyone's intelligence and say, well, you know, what you experienced wasn't, you know, you didn't really believe in God, right? You wasn't really a Christian, or you didn't really have faith. I believe you probably had way more faith than I did, especially the way Alan describes the kind of you did way more than what I ever did as a practicing Christian. Missionary trips and all this, youth pack, like all these. I have never done even a fraction. So one could argue you had way more faith than I did. So why is it that I, with the lesser faith, let's just say, for example, that I still have that faith and that belief in God and his existence, at least the way that he presents himself in my life and the world around me. But yet you don't, when you, for all accounts and purposes, you had greater faith than I did.
Because I think your faith is just waning every week you talk to us. you might either want to stop calling in or keep going down this route, because pretty soon I don't think you're going to be a theist, man. And as you can see, we're adding more ammunition on our end. This week we have 3 atheists against you. Next week we're going to bring in a 4th. So every week you call, we're going to surround you, man. We're going to win you over to the dark side eventually, buddy. But anyway, with that said, we do have to end this show. It's a fun conversation, but we do have to go. Joseph, as always, I wish that you would call earlier so we could have a long conversation with you, but I don't know if your schedule allows it. But unfortunately, we just got to bring this show to an end. Tommy, it's a lot of fun having you on. I really appreciate you jumping in here. I'm glad you were free tonight. So you guys are great. Thank you so much. I'm going to give you guys a bump from the show, and we will catch up with you guys on the flip side. Have a great night, guys.
Take care, guys. Thanks for coming.
And everybody else, we thank you so much for joining us tonight. Thanks for hanging in there with us for the long episode. And remember, everybody, every Christian has their own version of Christianity. We're here to unravel your conversion. Conversion. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Eastern for the great debate with Tristan Gabriel. Good night, guys.